going off.
We have a theme, you tried it, that's right, that's what happened.
Okay, are we live? Welcome, everybody, to the May 13th, 2026 Midcoast Community Council meeting. Council members, please introduce yourselves.
Betty Town,
David Santoro.
Kimberly Williams.
Connie Santilli,
Antonio Conti.
Secretary, please report all those present, and Gus Monomal is absent,
and so is Scott.
and Scott Bollinger. Okay, with that, we'll go to the Board of Supervisors report and reports from other government officials. David Cosgrave is here with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me back. Been a busy couple weeks since your last meeting. The office did receive some complaints for tree trimming work on Highway 92 that we followed up on. Caltrans is looking into their internal process to find out why the contractor that did the tree trimming to clear the lines to prevent the limbs going into the electrical lines. Somehow the process didn't come out to get alerting. So I see on the agenda you have Caltrans here. If Janine's here, she's been always really good with us giving this information. So they're working on their internal process and they apologize for that. But it did have a significant impact to the coast side for I think one day significantly, and the day before that with something else. So that's good. Supervisor Mueller has been very busy. Today he finished up a vote that started last Wednesday for the Bay Area Air Quality District. They're imposing a ban on gas appliances. The specific ordinance that they voted on today was 9.6, which is specifies for water heaters. So if a water heater goes out, it's a gas appliance after 2027. It will not be able to be replaced with gas, and the homeowner will have to convert to electric, which Supervisor Mueller voted no on it, but it did pass 10-8. So it did pass, and it has some stipulations for low income and financial burdens. The specific concerns to homes on the coast, those that have the homes from the early 60s that have small utility main panels, and to carry that load, and knob and tube. My house has knob and tube wiring. Well, you could be out for a significant amount of time where you get a PG&E permit to have them disconnect your power, replace your electrical main, and then have the electrician come in and install the gas water heater. So lots of concerns on that. Don't know how all the exceptions will work and how long it'll take to get the exception, so you can, if you were to still be able to replace it with gas. But the intent of the ordinance is to remove carbon from the atmosphere. It passed 10-8 on that today. He's also been working on a lot of healthcare issues on the coast, trying to get options for the coast. He's been working with the county health, county council, county executive office, city of Half Moon Bay, and others on trying to frame a roadmap on how a healthcare district can work on the coast, right? So there's a peninsula healthcare district and others around the Bay Area, which would give some say and input of an oversight for the health care district. So they're working on that issue to see how it could happen. He doesn't have a position on it at this time. He's just exploring it to make sure that's an option that's available for the coast, to see if it is an option, if it would work. So he's exploring with all those partners. Additionally, he's going to be having meetings with the operators of Seton Coast side to try to get a realistic update on when the emergency service standby service room would reopen. We've heard things here and there, but nothing officially from them. So he's trying to get an official word from them on when we can expect services back to the coast. The other one he's exploring is through the health department, is to see if the coastside clinic at 225 Cabrillo could provide services and take private healthcare insurance. And one of the pilot things they're going to look at to see if they could do lab work there for like specimen collections. So as a convenience to the coastside, not having to drive all over the hill to get blood or urine, whatever you have to do for specimen collection, that it could be taken there. So trying to explore that to see if that's an option. So he's been working very hard on those types of things. The other one is he's working with the health to engage Kaiser. Kaiser, the prediction, they think for private insurance, they think they have a 60 to 70% of the coastside residents are part of Kaiser. And trying to engage them to see what can be done, because with that kind of dominance, it doesn't, it's hard for someone else to open up on the coast and do that. So he's trying to look at all these things, just how we can have a control and improve the healthcare to the coastside residents for them. And that's my look there.
I've got a whole lot of things to say if you will listen. First of all, the tree trimming, I think was being done by the Resource Conservation District, not by Caltrans per se. So I may be wrong on that, but they've come and told us that they were going to be doing it. So you might want to check into that.
There are several projects going on. The day in question was a private contractor for Caltrans that was clearing the lines.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I guess there's a lot of moving parts.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of the healthcare things, I would love it if, County and I are MCC representatives on the age-friendly healthcare advocacy committee, which Marissa used to attend.
Okay.
And it would be great if Ray's office could work with us a little more closely. Because right now, where things stand for us with the healthcare district is that it is a soft priority for Half Moon Bay. If they vote to make it a hard priority, they're going to ask for funding. They're going to provide funding for a study on what the feasibility and how to make healthcare district come to be. And they were hoping that the county would somehow work with them. So apparently neither part knows what the other one is doing, and it would be great if you could work with our committee and with Matthew Chittister, who's actually researching this.
So Supervisor Mueller says he's working with, he mentioned he's working with the Midcoast Council and Matthew Chittister. So he's aware of the other things, and it's in coordination with them to try to do that.
It doesn't seem like it is.
Okay, so we can have some meetings.
So maybe you could check that.
Yeah, we can get some meetings and get things aligned.
Yeah, if I could.
Yeah, go.
Peter Shea from the county health used to attend the meetings, and he moved on. We know he moved on, so we were asking for another representative to come. That'd be great.
Okay, so let's see.
Pauline was allegedly going to be our representative from the county. And she hasn't come yet, but so I don't know if she knows that she's our representative.
Okay. So I'll find out who the rep is.
But there's a lot of stuff going on with this group already, and if we all coordinate a little bit more visibly, it would be great. Also, the latest word on Seton allegedly is that they are waiting to get the state hospital accreditation done. And it's scheduled, and whether it'll pass the first time around, we don't know, but it's in the works.
Okay. Anyone else from the board?
Do you have a question, Connie?
I just want to ask for, if you could just, is that all right?
Yes.
Just following up with Ray on some crisp priorities. I know he's been tracking them a little bit. We're trying to work with Nicholas on the telecom stuff, but I know there's a couple of crisp things that we're given pretty high priority in terms of category that maybe we could, so it'd be great to know if there's any updates on those.
I know he's had some interactions with AT&T lately, so he's still working on several of those issues.
Yeah, that'd be great. And there was a funding request, I think, that they were gonna try to put through to CPUC for some funding that was available.
When you say
like
they?
that middle mile, he said that somebody from the IT department or some group was gonna work on it
Oh,
this
okay,
year.
from the county.
That'd be great.
Okay, I'll look into that.
I see we have a public hand raised, Dan Haggerty. Dan, do you have a question for David?
Yeah, hear me?
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
now I can't hear you.
I think we're losing you. You're breaking up,
Yeah,
Dan.
so that's the problem. Yeah, the whole problem is that your audio is really bad. It's going in and out. And can you check with some of the other people on Zoom to get some feedback beyond me? Because the audio has been going in and out. It's difficult to hear and understand what's being said. Can you check with some of the others on Zoom, please?
Sure, thank you. Thank you for letting us know that. Zoe, do you think that's the microphones or?
I checked and I heard it was fine from someone else, but I'm
Sid?
not sure.
Can the other people on Zoom hear us?
Yeah, so,
Crystalline?
I'm able to hear it.
yeah.
Okay, so Dan, it sounds like it's your connection possibly. We've got a lot of okays and Crystalline can hear us just fine.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
okay, thank you. Hopefully it stops.
Okay, so you didn't have a question for David. I don't see any other questions.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you very much. And I'll follow up on the issues you had.
Thank you.
Are there any other government officials who would like to give us an update or a report?
I do.
Sid, please go ahead.
I'm putting the map in the link because I mean in the chat. But at our board meeting for MWSD on Thursday, Scott announced that we are in November, the 3 at-large divisions will become by division seats. Right now, they're filled by at-large members, and those members are Bill Sofke, Scott Boyd, and Leah Champion. However, Leah was appointed when Peter Decker resigned, and no one was appointed for Moss Beach Heights, which is Division 5. So I'm going to just announce early because we don't have a seated member at this time who is living in Division 5. So we will need to hire, or shall we say recruit someone to run for MWSD from the Moss Beach Heights area, which is on the map that in the link that I just posted. And it's also on our website, mwsd.net. And it's odd when we drew the map, the demographer made us put part of it across the highway because of census zones. It's really weird, but it does go a little bit across Highway 1, but most of it's in Moss Beach Heights, kind of along the lines of Sunshine Valley Road and up near Mid-Penn and that area. So anyone who lives up there who's interested in running for the Montero Water and Sanitary District, that will be an open seat come November. Thank you.
Thank you, Sid.
You're
Are there
welcome.
any other
I have a question for Sid.
community officials? Just a second.
Question, did you say?
Go ahead, Claire. I don't think we have any other people.
Sid, I wanted to know if you could give us an update on WSD in terms of something that I read and I didn't understand, but it was something about a boundary dispute or a parcel dispute or something with a neighboring community that was going to affect a federal grant that the district needs. Is that something that we should be aware of?
If you can give me something more specific, I'll tell you if I know.
Okay, so it's not something that you're aware of at the
Did it
moment.
have to do with
I'll
Seal
look into it.
Cove?
No, it wasn't Seal Cove.
Where is it? A boundary dispute for what?
Yard, Apple Bay,
Yeah,
and the lack of an easement. A long-standing easement that Sam needed, I think.
Who
Okay.
was talking? I couldn't hear whoever said that. Now I'm not hearing very well.
Alan Moss was speaking.
it's okay. If you don't know right now, that's fine.
Wait a minute. Alan Moss is in the room and he was saying there's a long-standing easement boundary dispute.
I think that's something we can research, Sid, and get back to you on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, if it had to do with Seal Cove, I don't know. They kicked me out of the meeting for those.
Okay, I'm gonna move on now. I don't think we have any other government officials who would like to give us an update or a report. Claire, your hand is raised.
It shouldn't be. I'll try
Okay.
to take it down.
I'm gonna move on now to public comments and announcements, and I'd first like to say that before we move forward, we're going to try and strictly enforce the time limit this evening to 3 minutes per community member. We've had a lot of feedback from the community and the council that we need to do a better job of ensuring that people have equal time and that they stick to their limits. So we're going to do our best to enforce that. We still very much want to hear from community members, and we still want to be very receptive to the community's concerns. That, after all, is our purpose. So we're going to do our best to balance here. And with that, I'm going to open up public comment. The public has 3 minutes for any comments they wish to make on any matter not listed on the agenda for tonight that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the MCC. Those wishing to speak on a specific topic on the agenda will be given time for that topic when it arises. So with that, I'm opening up public comment. Are there any public comments for the council?
I have,
Alan?
Yeah.
Please go ahead. If you could step to the podium.
thank you. I've come here tonight to share an interaction I've had recently with Mr. Calderon. And this arose because at your last meeting, I noted his comments about what the county was doing pursuant to the issuance of the geotech report for Sealco. I asked him for a meeting I live on San Lucas, which is a street of interest in the geotech report. And we met on the street, and then he was going to get back to me. After 3 weeks, I wrote him and said, "You haven't gotten back to me." And what he gave me back then was essentially word for word what he said to you all at the last meeting. And then, so in response to that, I wrote him the following letter, which I want to read out loud here, and then I'll be done. And so it was in response to essentially his comments here. Dear Mr. Calderon, thank you for the information. And I'm doing this, by the way, because I think everyone should be fully informed about what's going on and the process that's happening in Seal Cove. Thank you for the information you provided yesterday in response to my inquiry. It tracks closely with your remarks to the MCC at its last meeting. As such, the information is general in nature and does not address any of the individual concerns I related to you when we met here on San Lucas 4 weeks ago. As but one example, the condition of the road from the corner of Del Mar to my driveway is not, in a word, safe to me or members of the public who walk it every day. By limiting this to my driveway, I do not mean to minimize the rest of San Lucas to its terminus at Ocean Boulevard. There are sinkholes when you were on scene, and in fact, you took photos, and they have not gotten better of their own accord. My notes reflect that you were going to contact Public Works to gain an understanding of their intentions, as well as an attempt to get them to come out and do at least minimal maintenance, i.e. fill sinkholes. As I informed you 4 weeks ago, Public Works hasn't been here more than once in the past year. And the past year was when we had the huge water line break that has caused all kinds of damage, none of which has been addressed. And returning to my note to him, this is clearly unacceptable. The road hasn't been abandoned legally. Ergo, the county has a duty to at least examine the road for safety and to provide at least minimal maintenance. I note that their maintenance yard is less than 5 minutes away. This is not a burdensome ask, addresses a public safety issue, and notably as part of the county's responsibility. And let me note in this regard that no one from Public Works has been out here to examine the road since our meeting. You have simply presented, you have simply informed me that guidelines for abandoning roads should be, not will be, out by end of summer. That is neither reliable or helpful in this situation. The last time the county represented that a report would be issued as pertaining to Seal Cove, it was delayed multiple times and for 6 months.
Okay, Ellen, could you wrap it up?
I've got 3 more paragraphs.
You're already 4 minutes in.
I'm sorry,
You're 4 minutes in.
I'll read as fast as I can.
Can you share the written comments with the council so that we could put it on record?
I would just ask your forbearance, but let me finish. It's 3 paragraphs.
I'll give you one more minute.
The suggestion for it is no more than that of the issuance of a report by summer, would that be June 1st or Labor Day, is frightening. That seemingly delays any action here for months and months. And I know specifically in this regard that the headline in Sunday's Chronicle was that this upcoming winter, we will experience a severe, which is their word, El Nino, off the charts, they said. I think that what I have set forth here demonstrates that the county is not taking Seal Cove conditions seriously, but merely performing pro forma acts with no serious attempts to remedy the situation, exactly as the historical record indicates. I hope you will allow me one last thought. When we talked here, I represented to you that the county had refused to issue a permit to MWSD to repair broken water mains. You expressed shock and dismay that the county would do such a thing and represented to me that you were going to check on that assertion and get back to me. There's no mention of this topic in your response to me of yesterday's date. In closing, I hope you are able to disabuse me my conclusions.
Okay,
That's all. That's it. Thank you.
thank you very much. Are there any other public comments? I don't see any. So I'm closing public comments. And we're gonna move on. Actually, I can mention this item in our report. The council activity. We'll move on to the consent agenda. We have only one set of minutes to approve this evening, and my apologies to Claire. She did get the minutes to the retreat to me, but I haven't had a chance to read them yet. So I would like to postpone review of the April 30th retreat minutes to the next meeting. And may I have someone to move to approve the minutes of April 22nd?
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
Please call the roll.
Yes, Kimberly,
Yes?
Claire, yes. Antonio,
Yes.
Connie,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
thank you. It was 5-0.
Thank you. That brings us to the regular agenda, and tonight we have Evan Cole with us, who is the Natural Resources Manager for San Mateo County Parks. And Evan is going to give us an update on their current fire risk management work. So Evan, please take it away.
Yeah, thanks everybody for allowing me to join you. I was asked to come and provide a brief update on what County Parks has been doing this year for wildfire mitigation. So I'll give you a brief rundown of some of the work we've accomplished so far this fiscal year, which is basically since last July, and some of the projects we currently have planned for the remainder of this fiscal year. And then I'm happy to take any questions. And again, my name is Evan Cole. I'm the Natural Resource Manager for County Parks. I've come in front of the council a couple of times, but it's been a little while. So I manage the Natural Resources Management Division. So 2 arborists, 3 natural resource specialists, and some seasonal staff. And we handle the habitat restoration, invasive species management, wildlife monitoring, and the wildfire mitigation programs of the County Parks Department. So I will share my screen if I can, send a request now. I just have a few maps just for context.
Should be allowed.
I think she gave you permission.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks. So starting with what we've accomplished so far this fiscal year, and I guess I'll take a step back really quick and mention that I'm just going to talk specifically about wildfire mitigation projects, where that is like the main goal. Of course, we do a lot of habitat restoration and invasive species management that has kind of a side benefit of fuel reduction. And then also our operations staff, rangers, do a lot of work that contributes to fuel mitigation through trail brushing, mowing, things like that. So I'm not including any of that, but I'm just covering kind of the more discrete projects that we've been working on for my team. So starting off here, and some of these are out of your purview, but just want to give you the context for what we are doing across the county. Um, so we accomplished 10 acres of shaded fuel break at Junipero Serra Park. This was a FEMA funded project. This was accomplished last fall. It was phase 1 of 2. Phase 2 will be a follow-up treatment of this area later this summer. The red cross-hatched areas are the areas that we worked, and I'm happy to talk about some of the best practices and avoidance measures we use to protect resources during this and other projects. For example, the creek corridor has potential for San Francisco garter snakes, so we made sure to use only hand tools in that area, and we had biological monitors on site at all times during that work. It was outside of the nesting bird season, so we didn't actually need to do nesting bird surveys, but we also were avoiding things like wood rat middens during that project. Next project, also last fall completed. This is at San Bruno Mountain near Crocker Gate. We completed 5.6 acres of shaded fuel break and hazard tree removals. This is also part of a 2-phase project. Phase 1 completed last fall. Phase 2 we're hoping to complete around like this September probably, where we'll basically be expanding out this crosshatched area further down towards Guadalupe Canyon Parkway. And we're actually leveraging an exemption that the governor's office is allowing for us to be able to do that with CEQA. So this was 5.6 acres, and it was primarily invasive understory, ivy, blackberry, and a lot of eucalyptus. Um, Next up, this is our forest health grant project in Pescadero Creek County Park. This is part of a larger project funded by a grant from CAL FIRE to accomplish up to 540 acres of fuel reduction through 2028. And just in the last 6 months or so, we've already finished 60 acres of understory thinning in some of these areas here. And we'll be continuing to work through the year on this project. And then also I wanted to mention too, last fall we completed some maintenance work in Hutter County Park, 3 acres, which was a lot of broom removal in previously completed fuel reduction projects. So with every fuel reduction project we complete, we don't just walk away from it. 1 or 2 years down the line, we have to revisit to monitor and then conduct maintenance of the area to make sure that we're keeping that suppression down and making the most of that initial treatment that we did. So, County Parks has also partnered with CAL FIRE crews during this time to complete 4 acres of burn piles between Hutter and Wonder Lake Parks, as well as 2 acres of fuel reduction at San Bruno Mountain. Additionally, County Parks leveraged wildfire mitigation funds to improve essential infrastructure, such as the replacement in the fall of 2025 of the Shenley Creek crossing along Old Hall Road at Pescadero Creek, which was vital emergency access during the CZU wildfire response. We also completed significant habitat restoration and invasive species management, which provided co-benefits of fuel reduction, such as significant scrub removal in sensitive grassland habitats of San Bruno Mountain. Finally, we currently have several new projects planned and out to bid for implementation this year at Edgewood, San Pedro Valley, and Quarry Park, as well as the ongoing work here in Pescadero Creek Park. And then we also have maintenance projects planned as well for Pescadero, San McDonald, Memorial, Quarry. And I'll show you a few of these projects that we have out to bid right now. This one's at Edgewood, this is along Old Stage Road. This is a shaded fuel break and hazard tree removal project that we're working with the Friends of Edgewood on to make sure we avoid all of these sensitive plant species while reducing the understory vegetation and fire risk along this ridgeline. Additionally, we have a really interesting kind of pilot goat grazing project at Edgewood along the Sylvan Trail, the 2 polygons on the right there. And this is just kind of a pilot to see how goats can work to provide that maintenance benefit to previously completed fuel reduction projects, with the hopes that we can expand them as a more active tool in our maintenance of wildfire mitigation sites, especially in Edgewood, but also at other parks. This is at Weiler Ranch Road, San Pedro Valley. We're planning to do some understory thinning here, as well as removal of larger eucalyptus to try to restore the San Pedro Creek riparian zone. This is about 3 acres. And then this one, probably of most interest to you folks, Quarry Park, El Granado Boulevard fuel break. This was a previously completed fuel break, but there was a section of it that we had left untouched because of access restrictions. So this winter and spring, we've been working to scope out and plan this final section of the fuel break where there's a huge thicket of eucalyptus just underlying some houses off of El Granado Boulevard. So we've met with contractors and we're in the selection process now to planning to work this project probably starting mid to late June. And so they're going to be accessing from, if you can see the basically where the pump track is. They'll be clearing a previously existing skid road to travel north from that area to the red circled area where there are about 30 to 40 eucalyptus trees of various diameter across about an acre. And we're going to be removing all of that, trying to maintain as much of the understory as we can to not destabilize the slope. And then we'll be hauling a lot of that material out, stacking it in decks at the bottom, and then hauling it away to a green waste facility. And also, we have another goat project planned near Murata East, here in the Polygon section. This will be probably right after the goats get finished at San Pedro Valley off of Weiler, and then we'll be moving them here. And both sites will probably take 1 to 2 weeks. And this is going to be attacking a lot of cotoneaster, eucalyptus suckers, French broom, things like that, and try to reduce the weed cover on the sides of the neighborhood. And yeah, this is roughly the area that they'll be grazing at San Pedro Valley previous to that. And that's all I have for you. So I'm happy to take any questions now.
Great, thank you, Evan. Are there questions from the council?
I do have one.
Tony?
Thank you for your presentation. I was just wondering, is there any spraying of pesticides like glyphosate or anything, or is it all just done by hand, or is there,
We're not using any spraying or glyphosate for these particular projects. What we will be using in some cases is a cut stump treatment for eucalyptus regrowth, and that's involving a chemical called Garlon. And that is basically we cut the tree back, we paint the stump, just a very precise treatment on the stump itself, and then it prevents the sucker from regrowing, so we don't have to keep coming back and treating it again and again and again. And this is all in line with our integrated pest management program.
thank you.
Are there other questions?
I got a quick question. The fire break, how wide are those typically created in order to kind of prevent the spread in those certain areas that you identified?
Yeah, so we're each of these are what we call shaded fuel breaks. So it's understory thinning while maintaining a certain amount of canopy to maintain habitat value, but while reducing the fuel load on the landscape. That's about 100 feet. And then we take hazard trees anywhere from anywhere up to 200 feet.
Got it, thank you.
Any other questions? Evan, I have a question.
Sure.
A couple of times now, I've run into county park staff who I have concerns that when you're doing some of this understory work, there are a lot of park staff who don't understand the difference, unfortunately, between native plants and invasive plants. And I guess I'm wondering, how are you ensuring the staff that works on these projects is educated on what plants to conserve and which plants not to?
Well, all of these projects are being completed by contractors, not by park staff.
Okay, so how are you making sure that the contractors know what they're supposed to remove and what they're supposed to leave?
Well, so for example, I showed that map of the old stage road shaded fuel break at Edgewood, and we had a number of rare plants identified on the map. My team actually next week is going to be going out to flag those plants in the field for avoidance. And then the contractors go through what's called a worker environmental awareness training in the beginning. So we teach them about the plants, the flagging key, and we show them what the buffers are that they're supposed to be working around. So we have these retention areas flagged off for avoidance.
Okay, and have you found that to be effective?
Yeah, we've done that in many projects previously, and it's just takes a lot of coordination with the contractor, but it works. We do the same thing for nesting bird avoidance. So when we do our nesting bird surveys ahead of this work, which we will be doing for these projects, if we identify a nest, we set up the appropriate buffer. For example, a typical songbird buffer would be about 50 feet. We'll flag off an entire circle around that nest, and we'll show it to the contractor and make sure that they avoid that. Similarly for wood rat middens, potential bat roosts, and of course, rare plants.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna move now to the public. I see there are two hands raised. Dan Haggerty, do you have a question for Evan? Dan? You're on mute.
How about now? Can you hear me now? I think
Yes,
you can.
proceed.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you for your presentation, and very happy to hear that you are using goats for vegetation control.
Yeah, it's a new tool for us. We're still kind of trying to test it out in areas so that we can potentially scale it up and make more use of them. But we're really excited about it.
Yeah, I actually brought this up about 6 years ago, I think, and I might have got a couple of first laughs when I brought it up, but I discovered, that they work really good, especially on steep, hard to reach inclines. Through my mom, and I did some mom's property, and then I did some research, and yes, they're very widespread, very good, very natural. So I think you might have answered my question. My question was just to confirm, this is the very first time that the parks has been using goats for vegetation management in difficult to reach locations.
The area in San Pedro Valley that is being grazed this year, just before quarry, has been grazed twice previously the last couple of years. So that was
With goats? With goats?
with goats, yes, and it's actually the same grazer. It's the green goats.
Okay, great. Great. Glad to hear it. Keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Sidian?
I guess they're the ones that you can't contract to identify the native plants. Anyway,
Yeah, that is one limitation of goats. You don't really want to use them in highly sensitive areas because they will eat anything, and that's
I know.
benefit of
used to
them, but
have
it's also a limitation.
I had my own goats, and if they got loose, they would go straight for my neighbor's rose bushes. Anyway, I just wanted to ask you a quick question about Quarry Park. There's in the past there was severe runoff during the wet rainy season.
Right.
And so are there any plans to mitigate that? Usually they have a really awkward um, mitigation for that. They take, I don't know if you're aware, but they
It's like
take,
the sandbags off the main entrance. Is that what you're referring
yeah,
to?
and some wooden things, and it's just ugly. And it still runs down neighbors' streets, and they have to get sandbags for their driveways and everything. And it's quite a bit of water. There's actually on the Midcoast Community Council's website, you can see how much acreage and water it is coming out of Quarry Park. So is there anything that's planned for mitigating that water runoff?
I unfortunately can't answer that question.
Okay.
I haven't really been involved in that issue. I've been aware of it, but my team primarily works with the vegetation,
Okay.
wildlife within the park, not so much the infrastructure issues outside of it.
All right, thanks. That's all I had.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands raised, so thank you
Wait,
so much,
excuse me,
Evan.
hold on just a minute. My name is Laurel Frischman. I can't figure out how to raise my hand.
Oh, Laurel, oh, yes, so
Yeah,
please
I
go
just
ahead.
have a quick clarification, Evan. When you show the map of Quarry and you show the area where the pump track is, and then you said are you guys grading a road through there to get to the access point? What are you doing? You mentioned from the access point up top to the where the
Yeah,
pump track is?
I can share that photo again. We're not creating a new road, but we are reestablishing a previously maintained road.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a little road that runs there and runs on
yeah,
all the way up to the.
it's going to be very difficult meeting with the contractors. You can imagine they're kind of like shaking their heads a bit because this is definitely a challenging project for any contractor. I think the access is going to be the most difficult part, rather than the actual work itself, because the area is only an acre. It's, a few dozen trees. But yeah, basically from the pump track, they're going to wind their way up this existing skid road, and access road, and they're going to basically reestablish it by clearing the vegetation, to be able to make that jump up there. And then they're going to be primarily pulling. They're going to be chipping some on site within that red circle, and then anything that's too big to leave on site, they'll be hauling out back the way they came down to the landing zone at the pump track.
Are they gonna widen that road then from what it is right now?
We're still trying to determine that. We haven't even selected the contractor yet, so it's really going to depend on their approach, what kind of equipment they're using. We're going to try to limit the impact to the extent we can, because we obviously don't want to just, open up the whole area.
Yep.
But we're going to have to see what kind of dimensions in different areas we're going to need to establish.
And that's supposed to happen this summer, you said?
Yeah, we're looking to have that contracted by the end of June, so probably starting either late June or early July, I would say.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other public comments? I don't see any hands raised. Anyone unable to raise their hands? Seeing none, actually, no, Melinda McNaughton. Melinda?
Hi, thank you. I missed the presentation. I'm sorry. I just have a question for you. Are you going to be doing any more tree work on 800 Santiago?
In the area of Murata East, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, it's the area that's I think it's between the two schools, Wilkinson and El Granada Elementary.
We do have, we're aware of some downed woody material that needs to be removed in the eucalyptus grove on the east side of Murata East. That we are waiting to remove and process. Basically, we're gonna chip it on site within that eucalyptus grove, not in the grassland, of course. But
Okay.
we've been waiting because there's actually we identified a red-tailed hawk nest in that grove, so we've been waiting till that completes for us to manage that area.
I
But
so
no, we're
appreciate
not
that.
we're not currently planning any like new removals.
Oh, good. I appreciate that you're looking out for the birds and the nesting season. I also wanted to let you know that I was a volunteer for the Western Monarch Count, and I spotted some monarchs over there, and I told Zero Seas Society, who I was volunteering for, that I saw monarchs there pretty regularly. Um, and they said they had located it as a potential verified historical site. And I know there were monarch clusters there like 7 years ago, but I don't know if it's in the area that's remaining. Sorry about the dogs in the back. Or if it is in the area that was cut down. So I just want to make you aware of that. And then I can also have Zero Seas Society contact you with data about that if you need it.
Yeah, thanks, Melinda. We are aware of that. We're aware of the candidacy too, under the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Endangered Species Act, and we're kind of tracking that very closely to see how that can potentially impact park operations, across the county. But I've also seen monarchs kind of transiently throughout that area, especially in Murata East. Haven't ever seen any actual roosts, but we're on the lookout for it. We're considering options for doing more intensive surveys in the future. And of course, we do try to hold back on significant tree removal in a park on the coast like this during the winter months when they would be present.
Oh, I appreciate that, hearing that so much. Thank you for keeping an eye out for them.
Thank
And
you.
I know that their populations are in a downward spiral right now. And I think that you won't see as big of clusters as we would have seen in the past. So, but every site where they potentially roost is critical right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Melinda.
Thanks.
One last call for public comment. I see no hands raised. So
Well,
with that,
thank you all for having me. Feel free to reach out. Kimberly, you're welcome to share my email if anyone doesn't have it. If you have any questions about wildfire mitigation or anything natural resources related for county parks, feel free to reach out directly at me.
thank you. Thank you, Evan. We appreciate it.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
You too. Next up is the concepts, ideas for Highway 1 long-term planning, and we have a guest here tonight, Cody Hedges, who is the branch chief for Caltrans District 4. So with that, Cody is sitting here in the room with us at the table, and I'll turn it over to you.
Alrighty, thank you. I am not native to Zoom, so give me 1 second while I troubleshoot some of these different options that this told me to try out.
We're a little early, so sorry.
Do you want me to pull your
bring that on
presentation
you.
up? I can pull it up.
Oh, no, I can let me try one thing and then see if it works.
Kimberly, can I ask a question of you while he's working on his Zoom? I posted something in the chat, but it looked like the timer was covering everything up in the chat. Is that your experience as well?
I do see a comment from you, Sid, about Moss Beach Heights.
Okay. Is the
Uh,
map showing, or the link to the map showing too? Because there seemed to be little timer things stuck in the same thing of the chat.
There is a link showing, so
Okay,
thank you.
thanks.
Pointing
That's
that
all I
out.
want to know.
Okay.
Okie dokie, it worked, the idea. Okay, sweet. So I'm Cody Hedges. Thank you for having me tonight. It's good to be out here. I like to be out to the coastline when I can, because I live in Oakland. But I'm the branch chief for the Climate Adaptation Planning Branch at Caltrans District 4. District 4 is the Bay Area branch here for Caltrans, here in the 9-county Bay Area is what we do. And so let me actually move something out of my way. There we go. Okie dokie. So tonight we'll be talking about the feasibility study and the concept plan, kind of a mixture of the two of them. So this is kind of what I'll be going over today. Since I saw that we had 45 minutes, which is more than I need, I went ahead and added a section on nature-based solutions, which is something that we talked about last time we talked. So I went ahead and threw a few slides in there, kind of expanded beyond what I thought might have been 20, just to kind of have a little bit more time there. So let's just jump in first to talk about this concept plan. So I'm pretty sure most of you have seen the concept plan by this point. And there's some jarring things in there we'll talk about here shortly. I just kind of want to give some context behind the concept plan, just to start it off. It was prepared to comply with 2 coastal development permits. So the emergency coastal development permit, and we came out and did some emergency repairs on Highway 1 at Surfers Beach before. Those coastal development permits go through the California Coastal Commission. One of the things that they're really concerned about is long-term use of Highway 1 along this area, specifically for coastal access. So they wanted some long-term goals and like vision and ideas that we could potentially have in a process, really more specifically, for how to even accomplish those ideas at Highway 1 at Surfers Beach. And so that was really how it kind of started. A concept plan is something you've never heard of because we've not done one, because it was really not really part of the traditional Caltrans process. I have a few slides from now. I'll show you the delivery process so you can kind of fit it in mentally and what that is. I'll talk about that too, because it's kind of like a black box within the Caltrans world. So I'll kind of try and give an overview of that here shortly. But it's really meant to be the first step towards identifying this mechanism and kind of outlining what we're looking at. So I think a really big idea for this is that it is not proposing specific solutions. it's kind of saying, and when we'll talk about one here shortly, that given the projections for sea level rise and specifically cliff erosion at this location, what this might what we might need to do, not need to do, but could potentially do in 100 years. Given how much cliff erosion may occur and what sort of solution that is. And so it might not be necessarily palatable at first sight, but it's the kind of thing saying cliff erosion is rather severe in this specific area, and what 6.4 feet of sea level rise or 6.6 feet of sea level rise in this area would look like with cliff erosion, and what kind of response, given kind of this framework that we get from and we follow from the Coastal Commission, could look like. So that is what this broadly was supposed to look like from the beginning, which is why some of those things might seem a little bit dramatic, I would say, at first, but that was because of the context we're working in as a very, very first step to what we were looking for. And so again, this did focus on long-term potential strategies, which is why they were so far out, why the sea level rise projections were so high. And so going on to the concept plan, as I was saying, it aligns with permitting agencies because we look at 3 different strategies primarily. That's to protect, accommodate, tree strategies, because those are the ones that the Coastal Commission considers to when they're looking at guidelines for what they're trying to consider for the coastal development permits in terms of adaptation strategies. And so because of some laws that I think it's AB 1282 is the early coordination laws, we want to make sure that we're discussing things with the commission early on so that we don't kind of get into a hole when we're halfway through the delivery process and they're trying to tell us to do something different because we didn't talk to them early enough. So we're starting very early and we're looking at those strategies to start that conversation earlier on in a framework that they use. And so, as I mentioned, these strategies are kind of first thoughts, they're high level and they're long term. Hybrid is a strategy that you'll hear sometimes. That just means one of those other 3 strategies mixed with another one of those other 3 strategies. That's what a hybrid strategy really means. And again, it was this preliminary look to kind of have a launching off point and a mechanism to move forward. So I'm promised this, which is the delivery process. I know the little app thing is in the middle here. Let me see if I can do this. Yeah, well, there's not really too much to the right. Okay, so I kind of put an arrow to the left where this says concept plan. Because in the delivery process, typically, if you've ever been involved with it at all or heard us talk about it, you might have had a PID or project initiation document. That's when we start doing cost estimates. Then we go into the environmental process. Then we go into the design process, which is that plan specifications estimates. It's design until we actually design the thing, and then we construct it, right? So this is like the overall delivery process. And the concept plan is before all of that. So that's why we're not saying that we're proposing any solutions at this point. We're kind of looking at what sort of sea level rise we're expecting and what might even start to be potentially something that would even address that. And there are impacts to those, and that's why we're kind of starting it early because those will expected to be adjusted. And so this is, I didn't want to dive into this process anymore. We can talk about it later if you have further questions, but I always kind of want to throw it up so there's a visual of what this process looks like.
And I think online, people can't see that box. They can see your full.
Oh, they can see the whole thing.
Yeah.
Groovy. That's nice. Okay, cool. Then I'll ignore that the box exists. So the first thing I want to start with is this. It's the retreat strategy. And yes, I recognize when I say the dramatic, this is the one that I think is probably the most for this area because it impacts all of the things. Well, you can't see this at home. All the pictures in the room, which is why I like coming in person. Because I was looking around and I was like, hey, the Granada Community Park and Recreation Center is something I wanted to talk about, reference, because I recognize that this does impact that plan. And I want to mention that this was again, this idea of a high level, long-term, looking at 6.4 feet of sea level rise in the year 2120. That's what this looks at. How do we accommodate traffic in 100 years? And so that is why this is something that is based on those 3 categories: retreat, accommodate, and protect. This is the retreat, meaning we move inland, right? And so where do we go? We go inland, which goes over the center. So that's why we're not proposing it, but that is what that strategy would look like in 100 years, given the amount of sea level rise. And so that is why this was a little bit jarring. I know when it came out, it was meant to be very specifically towards the commission and kind of getting the mechanism worked out. And so I do want to recognize that we're not kind of living in a world where we're not seeing this plan. Like, I know this is impacting that, and why we kind of bring out, because it's almost trying to say like, this is what 100 years from now will have just because of the potential impacts of sea level rise, right? So that's the retreat strategy, realignment. There's also the accommodate strategy, which is similar. This one actually exists within what Caltrans right of way currently is. That right of way you're quite familiar with because one of your maps I know shows it. I think it's that one probably. Has like the right of way that shows if this like the shaded area maybe, or maybe I'm just imagining it. I've seen some of your plans where you show the Caltrans right of way. So this one fits within the Caltrans right of way. This one is 6.6 feet within by 2100, which is what the OPC guidance is for high, which is the highest level. We're not going to go into OPC, but that's who does the sea level rise projections for the state and what we then follow. It's one of the Ocean Protection Council. It's just who tells us what to expect in terms of sea level rise. And so that's where we get our guidances from. And this is their highest projection level, 6.6 feet in this area for the state in 2100. So that's why we're looking at those years. And when we look at structures like this, which is a viaduct, we look at how long they will last, and that's how far out we get, which is why we're looking at those long-term years. Again, not a proposal, but something that we're just starting to kind of look at, and what is the impacts of this in 100 years, right? Or in that case, 75. Then we have protect. Protect's a little bit different. This one is what we do with the space we have, using the resources we might have, and this is where nature-based solutions come in. This one is, and this situation was meant to be kind of put into one of the other two, but when we start talking about the feasibility study, these protect, in my view, come out a little bit more prominently in the near term perspective, because it's saying we already have some right of way here. We have a beach that the Harbor District has replenished in October, and they're doing monitoring for, and I'll talk a little bit, actually talk about that now. With the feasibility study is saying what kind of results are they getting from that monitoring of that beach replenishment? What is that doing to the impacts of the coastline that's already there and that erosion that's happening? And what is the feasibility of doing something like that in at least the near term? And what is the near term when we're having that monitoring, right? And of course, the Harbor District, I think, is also looking at how that impacts waves and therefore surfers, which is extremely important. And I'll talk a little bit about that when I'm going over some nature-based solutions. There was one that kind of sticks out in my head as a potential problem, but we'll talk about it later. But just to kind of talk about them. So we're kind of get our heads around nature-based solutions. So anyways, those are the three strategies that were looked at in the concept plan itself. So now I'm going to talk about the feasibility study, because really what this is the first step that came from the concept plan and why I'm here tonight to kind of bridge these two together. I showed this again because you saw it earlier. As you see that I put another arrow off to the left because we are still before the delivery and development process of Caltrans, because we're starting to, with these complicated processes, which are really any sea level rise climate change adaptation projects, start to have earlier conversations with not only other state agencies, which is that Assembly bill I mentioned earlier, but also locals in the area to try and figure out what exactly is already being done. Whether it's the community park and recreation center, whether it's the Harbor District working on the beach replenishment project, kind of understand holistically what's happening so we can use some of that data for what we're doing and understand what the plans are, because we don't want to live in a box at Caltrans and just think of the road when we start doing these. And the Coastal Commission does a good job of saying, well, you have to think about access, which is one group that does a really good job as another state agency to make sure we have those conversations. And so again, that's where that concept plan came from. And so if we look at this delivery process, I'm not going to go through all those again, but you can see the feasibility study off to the left. It's after the concept plan, before the project initiation document, which is where we just say, how much do we think these things will cost? That's what the PID does. And when we start saying, and these are the projects that we are actually proposing, that kind of comes into the PID document. So again, after the feasibility study. So a little bit more on the feasibility study. In terms of where we are, we received funding from our headquarters, Caltrans, in April. So that's about probably 5 weeks ago. I would say we got the email that we actually have the funds. So it's extremely early on. So the first time we're talking to the public about this. We've talked with other stakeholders, there twice before. Sorry, we didn't do the first one. That's my fault. But we have had two conversations with stakeholders, once in March, once in April. And then now we're here today to kind of really kind of vet this a little bit in terms of where we are and start to have this discussion. And this one, I'm also mentioning that we're starting to look at these short-term adaptation strategies, and that's where that protect comes in and these nature-based solutions that I want to sort of go over today at a high, very, very high level. And again, this is going to be not project specific. These are more like a suite of potential solutions that we're looking at because it's an early planning document. And so there's a word in here I'm using. It's aiming to complete by the summer of 2027. Yes, that's next year. And this, it's hard to describe this in like very short words. A near-term programmable solution. Programmable means that is it something that we can actually fit within our state budget, given all of the other projects that are going across the state. So like a project that's hundreds of millions of dollars takes an extremely long time to actually produce because it's not a programmable project, because it doesn't fit nicely in our box of how much money we can spend around, right? And so ideally we could find something that is programmable. So more like tens of millions versus hundreds of millions. That's kind of, broadly speaking, what we'd be trying to find if we can. And if we can do that, the idea is then to go into a PID, right? And so that's kind of why we're looking at these more near-term solutions, because they're more likely to be in that realm of spending. And that's why we're kind of looking at it. And so this, again, what I've been beating at this point now, it is also looking to consider these nature-based solutions. And so I did want to talk about nature-based solutions a little bit, and we're going to spend probably the rest of this conversation talking about it. What are nature-based solutions? And so nature-based solutions exist on this thing called the green-gray spectrum, at least that's what I like to call them. Gray being conventional engineering, that's just something like riprap or RSP, if you want to call it either way out there, with the rocks that are sitting out there right now. That's riprap. It's a gray solution. It's kind of based on the color in a way, but it's also like building a seawall, just conventional building of how we have gone about constructing and protecting our roadways and infrastructure in the past, a very conventional gray perspective. Then there's green-gray. How do we take that gray construction and green it? So in this picture, you'll see basically a seawall with little fins on it. San Francisco has a seawall that they're calling a living seawall. It's an example of that, where they're building ecosystems on the wall itself, right? If we were to do a seawall here, that would be one. It's not really something we're looking at necessarily, but that's an example of that. Hybrid would be something like what we call an elongated levee. It's an ecotone levee. Those are usually inside the bay as opposed to the outer coast. But it's the kind of situation where you start saying, all right, how do we start to build an ecosystem in this location that is artificial, but that we can use to protect the infrastructure while also working with nature? And we start to have this hybrid prompted recovery idea. Artificial dunes, which I'll talk about in a couple of slides, kind of fit in this hybrid prompted recovery. Because is there a potential here where we say, do artificial dunes potentially work here? That might be something like the dunes you might see over in San Francisco on their ocean beach. Not exactly, because you're a completely different kind of beach here, but it is like that kind of idea, broadly speaking. And so it's the kind of questions we're starting to ask ourselves, and that we don't have the answers, but we need to look at these sort of solutions to say, could they work? What's their lifespan? How much do they cost? And how much do they cost to rebuild? Because hypothetically, these might be built simply to exist for storms to erode them away rather than to erode the road away. And then you rebuild them. Those are sometimes the strategy comes to it, but not always. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the future. So the next slide, I'm going to go into a few different nature-based solutions. Not necessarily they are fit perfectly for this area, but these are ones that do exist around the coast, the West Coast. Now, artificial reefs, I do want to point out the second, but the second paragraph here. Because my major concern with artificial reefs is how does it impact surfable waves in this area? It's called Surfers Beach, therefore this is an impact. So this is one thing that when I consider planning, I look at planning as saying this is a way that we look at ideas, because sometimes we have to show that ideas that don't work. Otherwise, you don't know if they do or don't work, right? So an artificial reef might work. There are reefs that are built for surfing. Is that feasible? I don't know. We're in that phase where we're kind of asking these questions. Just to kind of get an idea as to whether it's even worth considering moving forward, right? And this is just a picture of Heron's Head Park, which is nearby where I used to live over in San Francisco, southeast San Francisco. They are mainly there just to improve water quality, but that's one of the things they do. And this is what nature-based solutions also work on, is they have positive impacts in terms of potentially reducing things like wave runup. In this situation, to be breaking the waves earlier before they break onto the roadway, or at least the cliff edge underneath the roadway. And when they break earlier, the the resultant energy that comes onto the shoreline itself is lower, and therefore it doesn't rip away all the rocks. And then you have a gap, and then the road collapses, right? We've seen this 2015, I believe, is when this happened. And so those sorts of concerns is how do we make that break earlier so that reduce the wave energy so it doesn't take out our roadway. And so these are the kind of things where something like this would do in breaking those waves earlier. That's also how they make them work for surfing. Whether it work here, I don't know, but it's something that is to consider. And one of the other potential impacts here is they're currently updating the guidance on the California Artificial Reef Program. And it's supposed to be done, I think, at the end of this year. So it's also in a weird timeline where they're updating it. So how much can we even look at this right now? Because they're going to change it. So that's also kind of an iffy thing with the artificial reef at this location. So that's an example of one. Another one would be, and this is one I mentioned earlier, artificial dunes. So this is a picture from up in the north, like north, Oregon north, of an artificial dune project they did. So this is one of those where it reduces wave energy, as I was saying earlier. Although one of my concerns that come up here is how much space do we have to actually construct these? This dune that you can see here was constructed with about 60 feet in length. You can kind of see the 12 meters and 7 meters, 20 meters, that's 60-ish feet, ish. More or less. And so like this is when we start to say how much space do we have and how much actual wave energy is this going to reduce and how much good is that going to do to protect the roadway and the coastal trail that's right there and therefore the community that's behind it, right? So we start asking these questions. So this is the one I think that we're starting to look at more seriously in terms of thinking about it right now, just to see what this might look like. And you'll kind of see this like scour blanket. There's this idea when you saw earlier the cobble berms, this is kind of like an alteration in a way of that, because it kind of combines what I'm going to show next, which is a beach with dunes built up with also like infrastructure below it to kind of harden the foundation of it. And so this is kind of another idea of nature-based solutions. Again, breaking the water earlier, letting it run up onto something that's not the road, not the coastal trail, and therefore not the community before it causes problems. And then the question is, how much does it cost to build now? How much would it cost to rebuild if that were to be taken out? So this is another one of those. I guess I should also mention, Caltrans hasn't done any of these ideas yet anywhere. So this is kind of one of those situations where we're trying to find what solutions will work best for not only the road but also the community at large in the area. And it's not, to us, is not just building more riprap, and it's definitely not that the Coastal Commission either. And so the last one I want to mention is something that you're probably quite familiar with, is the beach replenishment, the beach restoration projects. There's a couple pictures I took over the last year or so. And so this is one that's also extremely interesting to us because how effective, and this is a hard question on the inside here internally, is how effective is this beach restoration project at protecting the roadway itself or protecting the riprap that's protecting the roadway in terms of reducing wave energy before it even gets near the road. And if we can start to figure out how that's working and how effective that is and how much, then we can use the estimates or the actual cost rather the harbor district used, then we can start to say, okay, this is how much it costs to build, this is how much it costs to rebuild it if it were to be taken away from a large storm event, and how reasonable is that expectation that that would even protect it, and if there are a way to even adjust it to make it more effective over time. So this is where like these conversations, and Kimberly were there before when we had the coastside meeting, why we're trying to have these conversations now, because there's information that's being gathered actively that can be fed into this feasibility study. So when we get to a PID, we're not starting blind, we're starting with ideas and other projects that have already been happening. This is just another picture of the beach again from the other side, just because I like this beach. And so the last one here would be next steps. So the portal page, yeah, I'll put this in the chat later. We did launch the portal page. It is very, I would say, barren at this point for most portal pages because we got our funding last month and we wanted to kind of have it up before we had this conversation. And so we could at least have people see broadly what was going on and have a place. We'll also put these slides up, this presentation up there so people can go back to it. I'll probably also link, if you're okay, to the recording of this. It'll be on that.
We could put it on our website too, or link to it on our.
Yeah, if you want to put it on your website, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, we can, if you link it on your website, we can link it to our website, to your website kind of thing. Yeah, so like that's also the idea of the portal page to be like, oh, did you miss it? Here, go here. Right, so we start to have like a track record of what's going on through this. And then as we go along in the feasibility study and say we have a survey, which will eventually happen, we can go there, we can send out email blasts to this website. It's a more interactive version of the typical, very stale Caltrans webpage. Or stale is not the right word, and nobody would like me saying that in PIO. Static, a very static Caltrans webpage. Well, you know, when they sent the same letter, the first 3 letters are the same. It just, anyways. But yeah, so that is it's the more interactive version of the typically static Caltrans webpage. And we are looking for an open house. Coastal Commission has been trying to get us to have an open house. Probably June or July. We're trying to make sure the engineers are comfortable with some of the ideas so we can have a discussion. Because there's that weird line between what are we even asking you? We don't want you to come out and just have us talk at you when we don't have things to actually ask that can meaningfully go into the project. So that's why we're trying to figure out when is a good time to do that. We're trying to make sure it's as early as makes sense. It's going to be before projects are just suggested, which is earlier than typically do it. And I think that's kind of finding that median area of saying what is important to the community and what do we need to consider when we're doing this? And then we can go forward from there and say, now that we know which is important to the community, this is how we've inputted some of the ideas. What do you actually think about some of these strategies? And then we'll just continue work on the feasibility study. These are just some existing plans. Obviously, the community plan, the local coastal program, the land use plan, some that are going, like being considered as we're going through this. And then did I forget to add, of course, the, the community park and recreation center. So obviously on there too, because I was talking about it about 10 minutes ago. And then ongoing coordination efforts, which I've kind of, it's a mess. It's over there. So it's like coordination efforts in terms of US ACE is the United States Army Corps of Engineers, the Army Corps. USA, it's got a whole bunch of different like acronyms and names. That's what US ACE means. It was the shortest way of putting it. Sorry. So their section 111 info sharing that they're doing there, that we're trying to have with them, we are having with them, again, the Harbor District, and of course, like making sure that we're considering what sort of impacts are coming into this community park and recreation center. And like, even if it's simply saying, okay, how do we create an appropriate buffer to that when we're looking at these plans and what does that look like? So those are sort of like what we're considering at this point. And I will stop talking now once to open up the floor for questions.
Great.
Okie dokie.
So are there questions from the council? Claire?
I'm delighted to hear your presentation.
Oh, good. I give it.
I like your saying, we don't want to live in a box at Caltrans.
It's a big 14-story box, so you know.
It's a big box.
Yeah.
But this perfectly sums up what the MCC has been working on along some of these issues for some time now, is to try to get buy-in from everybody and to try to keep communication open and to keep ideas flowing.
Mhm.
So thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for, I'm glad you have all these pictures up too. I was actually looking at, that's the one I was thinking of, the gray area to the left. This is completely useless and I'm sorry to people online, but there's a picture over here that has a gray over to the left. Like, you know, like that's a good picture to say, like, that's right away we have, that's your project. And like, how do we make sure that we're not just saying, hey, guess what? Here's a road right next to your project. Have fun. You know, that's not, what's the kind of thing we're trying to avoid with these. So I'm glad to be here.
David?
Yeah, I know you talk about in 100 years, we're gonna possibly go six feet up, but when do we start really seeing the changes with the sea level rise that may start impacting us more so than 100 years out, if that makes sense, what I'm asking?
Yeah, the hard thing about sea level rise is it is a process that happens extremely slowly over time. And if you're bored and want to fall asleep quickly in the evening, open up, thank you OPC for your guidance, but open up the OPC guidance and look at like the different sea level rise scenarios. And they have like 5 different scenarios that range from, I think it's low, intermediate, high, right? And so to say that there's one point where this is when it is going to impact this area it's not really possible to do, right? Because sea level rise isn't just about sea level rise, it's also about increase in storm surge. So you look at storm surges that might be like a foot of storm surge today, it could be 1.5 feet of storm surge in the future. And if you have 0.5 foot of sea level rise in say 20 years, 2050, it's supposed to be 0.8 feet. So from 2000, so it's 0.6-ish feet. 0.5 foot more from now will be about 2050, right? And then your storm surge is probably going to be another 1/4 foot, right? For the same like level of storm. And so you're not just looking at, oh, sea level rise are higher and king tides are higher, which is more of a bay area, like inside the bay concern because they're tidally influenced.
Actually, do see it here.
Oh, you do see it here too. Over there, it's more like you also have the waves. And I guess that was I guess what I was getting to with that one is like when you have a storm surge, they have a storm surge and the water gets higher and it, runs up more. But here you have a storm surge and your waves are more destructive. And so it's less about direct flooding, although you have groundwater emergence issues too. It's also about the intensity of the waves that are coming. So you have compounding issues. And so it's hard to pinpoint when that is. And like, just, we're all humans here and we have this thing where it's like, this is an issue that's happening to me now and in the immediate future. Right. And it's hard to see things that gradually get worse and worse and worse. It's like, I always think of it as the door frame when you like mark your height as a kid. Like I never knew when I got to 6'3", right? Which is why I'm at now, except when I slouch, I guess. But when I was I feel the same height as I did when I was like 5'6". Because to me, it's not that different because it just happened. And all of a sudden, wow, I'm 6'3" now. This is weird. I can almost dunk a basketball. I still can't, but almost. And so this is issue of saying like, when is this actually going to happen? So it becomes a situation where we say, we don't know when exactly this is going to be a specific issue, but we can start to guess. I can actually show you something that might be handy. Yeah. So this is also from a study. This is in the concept plan. And so this is, the expectation here is that the riprap is gone. The big rocks on the shoreline is gone. And these are different bluff edges, right? The riprap goes away, the bluff edge starts to erode. 2050 at that's 1.1 foot, so a little bit higher than what the intermediate would say. But still reasonable expectation in 2050, maybe a little on the high side, but not by too much. You're already talking about the surfers, that little parking lot area, right? And so this is what you're starting to look at with erosion if there is no riprap. And then the 6.4 by 2120, that's intermediate high, which is on the high end. Intermediate's probably like the more like expected realm, that intermediate, low intermediate. But that's the intermediate high level in 2120. So like we're starting to see this erosion where it starts to go in if we just have no protection at all on the shoreline, right? So there's this question of what we do there makes a difference on how this is going to impact the immediate area. So this is a really long answer, and I'm really sorry that I'm not giving you a straight spot.
You're good.
Yeah. But these are the kind of things where we're starting to say, like, we can't just get rid of the riprap immediately because this will immediately start happening. Right. I mean, if you remember, I was not here, nor I don't know if I wasn't alive when the breakwater was put in. But like that erosion happened quickly and started going at what, feet per year? Low feet, but still feet per year. And then that's when we started protecting things on the internal coast there where that curve is. And so that's the kind of thing that we just take up again. And so we have to protect it. And so this like determination of what are we doing right now to make sure we are protecting it in place. But how do we do something that both protects it the way we want to protect it in the near term and the long term, then also gives you the beach that you lived here for?
Got it.
And so this is kind of, I guess, the best way I could answer it visually, though, is if we had no riprap, this is the kind of rate of erosion we would say. So, yeah.
That was helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
Yes.
Thanks so much for coming, Cody. It's really helpful, I think, for the community. And I think will be really helpful to have the open forums. I think, there's a tendency for people that speculate about all kinds of things, even what you just shown tonight will probably, circulate with probably not what you intended maybe in what you're saying, but
Yeah.
I think the more often you can come, the better it will be to help squash some of the misunderstandings about what you guys are doing. I think the other thing for me was I thought that, can you reiterate again, once you get through the feasibility study, which you're saying is summer of 2027, what would be the next step after that? Could you reiterate that?
So it depends. So if we can't find that, this is the weird programmable solution thing that comes in, right? If we can't find a programmable solution, which you could probably not direct translation of that would be affordable solution.
Programmable.
Yeah, so programmable just means we can fit it into, you want to get into like wonky nerd stuff. SHOP program. Our SHOP program is the big fund of money that comes from both the federal government and the state government, like gas taxes. A lot of it pays for that, right? And so we have that pot of money, and we have to like start pushing out projects in certain areas based on that pot of money. And we have this huge 10-year book that we put together with it, and then we kind of slot them in as they go through, right? And so when we have if we can find something that fits into that, again, that tens of millions versus hundreds of millions of dollars, then we can go into a PID. And so if we can find something that is that, like in that programmable range, then we would go into a PID document, right? To give you an example of that, the Pescadero up north where they have the micro realignment right now, just construction is, I believe, $15 million for that. It's not my project, so do not quote me on that, but I think it's in that realm, right? And that's where they're moving the road in 30 feet, if I believe. I think it's center line to edge. And so they're moving that in. So that would be something that would be like a programmable solution, right? It's because that's the cost realm. But if we're looking at something that's like, this isn't going to do anything, and I don't think this is the case, but I can't make any promises of it. But if we can't find anything that's programmable, then we have to go and find money in order to actually fund it. And so that's why I can't promise that the PID is the next step, but that is why we're looking at the shorter term, nearer term solutions, and then trying to make sure that we can phase those in. So like a phased adaptation approach. So we can go near term, programmable, do something, give us some breathing room in a way that is not precluding future projects as well. If we can do that, then it would be a PID, and we would fit that into the next PID cycle, which is that's too much. Then we'd fit it into the next PID, so there'd probably like a year lull or so before we kick it off because of how funding works. But we go into the PID. If it's not, then we'd have to find funding to fund that whole process.
So that's more of a long-term remediation type phase. Even if you phased it, it's really for long-term. So in the short term, there is funding to keep things at least manageable to what it is today.
I mean, I guess arguably right now it is manageable, right? Like it's there. So I think there's that, like we wouldn't be ripping it out, I guess is definitely the answer there. So it is to a perspective, it is manageable. I know the Coastal Commission has issues with the riprap, which I completely understand, mostly visual. Because it does erode, it takes up space that could be used for recreational purposes and access, right? So there's like a dual combination issue there. And so, it depends on how we define manageable, but in terms of protecting the road and the coastal trail that is immediately adjacent to it, it is a manageable situation right now in the near term. However, it is not a good it's not a long or midterm solution. Right. And so it's also, I would say, a priority for Caltrans, which is why we got funding from headquarters. This is not coming out of our shop budget that I was talking about right now. This is coming from a headquarters study, like feasibility study pot of money they have, which is a way to identify that it is a priority project for the state. And also when District 4 says we need money for this, usually we tend to get it because our coastline is 40% of the coast of the entire state. Right, because the bay is also considered a coastline, right? And so we have that as a way to show that it is a priority. So if there's a way we're having issues with it, then we would find other avenues to do it. It would just take longer, but that's why we're looking for those more affordable, programmable solutions.
Great.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
Sure.
I'll move to the next.
Thank you so much. It was a great presentation. You actually answered all my questions that I wrote down as we're going along. So thank you so much for coming here and taking the time.
My pleasure. Yeah, thanks for giving me a reason to come to the coast. So, you know,
I have one more question. With the riprap, how successful is that in preventing it? I mean, I'm sure there's still the water gets through it and there's probably still a little erosion happening. What is that? What does that look like if you're following my question?
yeah, I don't have a good answer for that because I'm not an engineer. I'm a planner. And so I don't have like the technical answers for those specific things. Yeah, like in terms of efficacy of it.
It's there. I'm just wondering how effective it is. And let's say without it, it would erode in 10 years. I'm just making.
Yeah, I mean, I think
eroding in 15 years. Like I'm just
So
wondering.
this is the word management.
Yes.
Yeah.
A hard surface seawall, it actually accelerates erosion to some degree because of the hard surface. And so for riprap, it generally will erode underneath and behind.
That's what I'm wondering.
And then you have to keep putting on more riprap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we keep doing.
so. Yeah, I would. Oh, is this
So it's helpful. It's helping, but not as.
It's not ideal.
Yeah, that sounds ideal. That's what I was trying to understand. What's the success of putting that there?
Yeah, I don't have a great answer for that. I would say one of the things that comes with riprap is the reason we do it is because it dissipates that wave energy, right? It makes things more rougher. It increases, the word they use is increases rugosity, rigidosity. I forget, also not a scientist. Anyway, it's basically it makes it more rough, right? And when you make things more rough, it doesn't like run up, splash over, and then rip away. And it becomes sometimes sacrificial, right? That's the third reason the Coastal Commission does not like it, because you have rocks in the water. And so big rocks that you can't pick up and take home with you. So it becomes sacrificial to a point when that gets ripped away, because the idea there being that if the storm is so intense that it's ripping away this riprap, that we have our large boulders on the coast. If it wasn't there, it would have probably taken the whole road, right? And so like when we look at those major storm events that we only see on occasion, it's starting to imagine like if these weren't here, we probably would not have a road to drive on. As opposed to, I know when I came out here in probably September, I think it was September when I came out here for those first pictures. I saw the repair, because you can always see the repairs because there's new rocks, they're different colors. And there was a repair where like about maybe half a foot, maybe 6 inches of the road or the trail had been cut away. And they put that back in. And so I look at those and I go, okay, so how much would that have ripped away if these weren't here? And also how much would just regular waves take away? And so they're really good, especially for just like normal everyday waves. They didn't do anything and it's not eroding away, because it's really the difference between trying to knock a rock away versus a bunch of little pieces of sand, which is much more erodible. Is that the word I'm looking for? Can suffer more from erosion. So I would say the efficacy is there, which is why we use it, but can't quantify it. Just trying to qualify it.
So I have questions.
Sure. Go for it.
Has to do with some of the nature-based solutions that you showed. So, when you talk about the artificial dunes, there are also examples of dunes that are not artificial, right? So Pacifica has a nice example of that, and it's too bad it's only in that one spot. But they did dune restoration, and it's spared pretty well. I know that there are complications in this spot because for a natural dune restoration, you need a lot of space, right?
Yeah.
When you put a hard surface, when you stop the beach from beaches are natural areas, and so they're never the same. If you go out there one day, it's going to be different the next day.
Yeah.
And the public, I think, tends to think that it's unchanging. And so natural dunes kind of allow some erosion, but it comes at a much slower pace. So I'm assuming that's not a possibility here just because of the space limitation. Is that true?
I don't know. I think that's part of where we're at as well now. It's like what makes sense. And it's also I think there is space limitations, and I'm not as familiar with outer coast solutions yet as we're going along with some of these. Because a lot of my recent study has been with inner, or what they call sheltered coast. Which is just the bay, more or less, right? It means that they're not direct, like outer coast waves. And so that's the kind of question that we would actually want to be looking at into these, is like, what is the efficacy of a artificial dune versus a typical dune or a natural dune environment? And so I don't have a straight answer for that right now, unfortunately, but I think it's something. Sorry, I'm just having a thought. I was like, oh, I know that one of my staff is on this. I was like, Tara, make a note of this. It's something we should look into. And so I think it's something that like is worth looking into. I would have hesitancies to believe that a natural dune would work extremely well because of the breakwater, because it kind of siphons everything in. And so it's kind of like a clawing action rather than just a natural like lapping action.
So there's a lot of reflection going.
Correct. And so that's where my mind immediately goes in terms of the efficacy of that. And like if the foundation isn't there, is it just going to erode away quicker? And if we're already going to do a dune, does it make sense to do an artificial dune because it have a more solid foundation that it is makes it sturdier toward against those waves? And also with the Pacifica one, is it outer coast, or do you know if shelter just means it's kind of like protected?
Right, so it does face the outer coast, although it's because of the shape of Pacifica, because of the erosion further up in Sharp Park, it kind of does a little in and out thing.
Mhm.
But it still receives full on, you know, during storms and things, and in the right situation, you're still gonna have erosion no matter what the solution is, but
Yeah.
it slows it way down.
Yeah.
So in terms of years, much longer timeline that you have as opposed to when you install a hard surface.
Yeah, and I think one thing I'd get curious about, because I've thought about natural dunes in sheltered coast environments. And they call them hummocks, they're usually like smaller. But it's the same idea as the beach replenishment that I was talking about, where how much erosion, and then you put it correctly, erosion is happening regardless. But if you can put a beach there that helps it erode first, and then you rebuild it, it's a lot cheaper to build a beach every few years, or probably 5 to 10 years, than it is to replace riprap and a roadway every 10, right? Just because of the exponentially more or higher cost of a roadway construction. And so, you know, I look at this and I start asking myself something along the line of like, well, what if we put a beach here and then we also put like natural dunes behind it? Or even like smaller dunes, which might be called hummocks, where they kind of come up and like siphon it into little channels. And they're doing that down in Santa Cruz as well. I think they're working on that.
There is a project, I think,
Yeah.
and it involves also some dune plants, right, that help maintain the surface. So, okay, that's really interesting. And then one of this photo that you have up here now, this actually looks very much more like a berm than a.
Yeah, right.
So that's what I was curious. So that would then be supported by some sort of metal pilings underneath, or?
So you can kind of see it, you see that the little squares inside of it. This is what kind of where the artificial comes in, is like sandfill. It says sandfill geotextile cubic shaped bags. Basically, it's just like, I'm thinking about geotextiles. So you ever see somebody that has a driveway and they've like put the middle of the driveway, they have like concrete on either side for the tires, but in the middle is kind of like these like rubber, like weird shaped things to catch the dirt, and then let the grass grow in the middle. That's kind of, I think of that as a similar idea. It's like the geotextile is the idea that you're like putting it and you're giving it structure to something to sit in. Right, so there is like a foundational core inside of this that is giving it that structure, and then you put the things on top of it, then you vegetate it, and then the vegetation here allows it to take root. I mean, it's like, it's actually the exact opposite idea of what happens in wildfire, right? And the wildfire takes out all the plants, you lose the whole root system, and when that root system goes away, the ground goes away, right? So part of this idea, in this picture at least, is that you have those like foundational textiles, and above it you have the sand dune, and then you have natural vegetation on top to give it more structure. And so over time it does improve. And so I think that's kind of, this is maybe also it's way up north in terms of Oregon, so it's probably just completely different vegetation styles up there. But yeah, I mean, you combine this with things as you can kind of see it, I think in this picture, oh yeah, there is, I'm forgetting of course, I'm forgetting the term, but like those logs are not randomly placed. I mean, they might be randomly placed, but they're there on purpose because they are also part of that structure to help with that erosion. Because it's also like there to be something that isn't just letting everything like slip away. Right, so those are also on purpose, and that's also what the whole like scour blanket and as you see here, which is that little dip, and then like what those like rocky surface leading onto the beaches. And the real question becomes, do we have enough space? I think that's something you mentioned.
Okay.
So
Did you have one more?
I'm just curious, would this type of, the artificial dunes in this would completely change Surfers Beach. If we
Yeah.
wanted to put it there, it would no longer really be a Surfers Beach. Is that right?
no, I wouldn't say.
It could be a beach in front.
Yeah, and I'm talking about the waves and like what we have now, if that would change that.
So this is, I think, where the Harbor District study comes in, right? Because the Harbor District, when they're doing this, because hypothetically, we wouldn't just say like, all right, here's the beach, let's just put the beach out another, 50 feet into the water. It's starting to say, well, Caltrans has, I forget what exactly we have in terms of right of way, but it's like 50 feet of right of way on the land side. So like, what does it look like if we were to push it back and then put something else here and then say, this is the beach? And then what if we put something behind the beach? That is also like this sort of dune structure, or maybe it's a berm structure that's not necessarily riprap, but it's more of like a vegetated style of riprap or something like that. That is less visually impactful, but still does the same job. And then you put the road backwards a little bit, right? And so it's kind of that's a hybrid where it's a protect/retreat, kind of doing both. So no, the idea we don't want to, but like it's surf. I always go back to the name because it's just kind of one of those things. But that's where their monitoring and how their beach is impacting the waves and the surfability here is important for our considerations. Because if it's doing fine, it's like, great, then maybe we do a beach again and say it lasts 5 years, great. Or well, 5 years. We don't, time wise is the thing, it's more of, it lasts up to this this intensity of event, like storm event. And then and we expect that to happen, I don't know, every 20 years, right? It's a 20-year storm event or something like that. And so then we kind of say like, okay, cool, we expect to last 20 years because that's how the storm event that took it away. Right. So then we have like, it's kind of a foundation to say, we want to do this again because X, Y, and Z. Then it's working with the Coastal Commission to make sure that is something that is palatable. Since we have a pilot program here, we have like some foundation to say that it is palatable potentially. And then what makes sense, and then we have to work with our partners who own some of this land. Well, this place, it's really the commission doesn't own it, but they oversee it to make sure that it is something that makes sense to them, that they would be able to actually approve. And also, one of the ways that gets approved is to make sure that the community finds it palatable. Right.
Thank you.
So,
That was helpful.
So, just one last thing, Cody, I'd like to go to public comment. But one thing that occurred to me when you mentioned the beach monitoring project here is that Surfrider actually helps monitor that sand loss.
Yeah.
And wave surfability. And are organizations like that who have some expertise and can point to other examples and stuff like that, are they, will you be looking at consulting with them about, just gaining from their knowledge on some of these things to think about possibilities?
Yeah, I think that's where the public engagement comes in, right? At this point, not yet, because we're kind of like easing into that engagement level. But once we get into that engagement, that's when we start to have these conversations with the public at large. And we start having those conversations with the public at large, that's where that information would come in. And so from a quantifiable perspective, that's where their monitoring with the Harbor District is kind of like an immediate input. That kind of siphons their views probably into what we're doing. Although maybe less than that. Yeah, it kind of gives us an avenue. So it might not. I think that's the other thing is, does it? Great. Does it not? Then how do we actually make sure that that is being gathered? And that would be through the public engagement process overall.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. I'd like to go to the public comment. I see 2 hands raised. First one is Dan Haggerty.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great.
Sorry.
Yeah, first of all, Cody, I wanted to say that well, I really appreciate you coming tonight. I think that you have a very your style of presentation is very friendly and pleasant, and I think you've humbled yourself a little bit. So I wanted to say that I noticed you just I hope you can come back. I really appreciate hearing the presentation from you. Um, Second, wanted to, it sounds like on that 100-year thing that was the projected about the sea level rise. As far as actually doing something, there's quite a bit of an unknown as when you need to take action. So I don't know if it's reasonable to say that nothing would happen for 30 years. Is that fair enough? I have a couple other questions, but is that or it's an unknown, but the 100-year mark is the projected sea level rise, and then when we would have to make some take action to start to mitigate for that would be a bit unknown, but probably 25, 30 years at earliest. Is that fair?
I
Or
would say we probably should have had these conversations earlier, like in terms of we need to do things now, like, and it's only progressively getting worse. And the reason I say that is because we had an emergency coastal development permit to repair the roadway because of a storm surge already, like a decade ago. Right, so
yeah,
that's saying like.
it's an
This is
immediate situation. Yeah.
spurred by that, but like, I don't think of it like in a linear fashion. It's more of like, we are doing this now because of those permits. And the coastal commission was the one who said, you need to do this. And I'm glad they did, because it's a conversation we need to have. And so I don't want to think of it as like in 20 years, we should be doing this. It's like, we should be trying to do it as quickly as we can. Because we probably should have been, if possible, been doing it earlier, but we didn't, and we're doing it now. So I think that's where I'm at with that.
Okay, fair enough. So my feedback on what the whole bridge concept, to me, in my opinion, far too great of impact, both environmentally and view, and just causes too many. So I really very happy to hear so much attention and time spent with the concept of the natural living shoreline concept. And as far as an immediate action, clearly, yes, the riprap requires maintenance, and one thing to push off the major maintenance would potentially be. I think you mentioned it earlier, general concept of dumping sand into the riprap, which, yeah, it would eventually wash away, but it would slow things down, slow the erosion of the actual native soil underneath. So that's something that I would encourage, kind of an immediate thing, is just start a kind of a maintenance program of just replenishing sand and around the riprap, eventually planting, but I think that'll probably take on the next presentation. So thank you very much for coming. I hope you do come back. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. I can always, I don't know, so we use the word matrix, because I think it just means the stuff in between, is what the, I guess, matrix translates to in words, which is that idea of like sand. I don't know exactly what maintenance does, in terms of how they handle that matrix in that fill inside of riprap, but it's something I need to follow up on. It's a good point. Like, how do you stabilize the riprap? We've done it for a long time, so I'm sure maintenance has a strategy that works for them, and that's how they do it. And so I think probably just worth me asking more questions with them. Give me a reason to go to one of I think Pacifica is the nearest, the maintenance yard. So or actually, no, there's one down in Half Moon Bay, and so anyways, yeah, I'll get that conversation going. So thanks, Dan.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
Sylvia?
Hi, Cody. Thank you. I really did enjoy your talk. And I'm a little confused. I didn't quite get your title when you introduced yourself. On the agenda, it said we were going to have Jeannie Crawford.
That's my mistake, sorry.
No, that's my bad. I was out the last like, I was out from last Friday and I did not tell Kimberly before I left. And then- So that was
What was
my,
your title and how do you relate to who she was? Is she your boss or you her boss or not related at all?
we're not related at all. I'm from Indiana. I don't know where she's from.
No,
But
I don't mean related. I mean, are
I
you
know,
in the same division at Caltrans?
No, she is the public informations officer, which just means she's somebody who does public relations. So I think David Cosgrove mentioned her earlier as the person that he mentions with like talks to about tree trimming. So she really deals with a lot of like public comments that are coming in about whatever happens to be going on. She's one of
Okay,
those
and what are
individuals
you?
that does that. And then
What's
I
your
am the
title?
climate change adaptation planning branch chief.
I'm sorry, adaptation branch chief?
Yeah, so I'm the, adaptation planning branch chief. So I deal with climate change and particularly sea level rise issues here in the Bay Area for Caltrans and how we deal with those and like how we plan strategies to adapt to those tides and those sea level rise.
Okay, can you by any chance go back to your PowerPoint and show the slide that showed the realignment and bridge adaptation slide? I don't know what slide number it was, but it showed a bridge. And I was just gonna ask you about well, I was gonna ask you about the funding because I live in Moss Beach and they were talking a long time about Highway 1 Moss Beach corridor, and I don't know when they're ever gonna get to that and how much the funding is gonna ever get applied to Moss Beach. But
There, this one?
um
That's a
does that
different.
show the bridge? I don't think so. It looked like it went inland. Yeah, that one. Can you zoom it closer so we can see it better or not?
Yeah, I
Is that
think
the
this
fire station
fire station is off to
Where
the
you-
east.
where your cursor is? Is that the fire station right there?
Oh, wait, no, here, sorry, this is fire station right here.
Yeah, okay. So the bridge would come inland where the fire station is now, basically.
Yeah, this is, and I guess this is also something that, like, we're not proposing this project. I'd say this is what a retreat alternative, which is one of the three
Concept.
alternatives we look
Right.
at, would look like 6.4 feet of sea level rise. And how we would accommodate, or rather, how would we protect the highway at that sea level?
Yeah,
Or that
that's just the-
amount of sea level rise,
That's the
so.
bridge concept. I get it. Okay, I just wanted to ask that question because I wasn't sure. They originally, when they built the fire station, they said it wasn't gonna be in the the sea level rise zone. Thank you. That's all I wanted to know. You don't have anything to do with the Moss Beach corridor either, right?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to ask.
Thank you, Sid.
Kimberly, I forgot a 5-second question, a 5-second question. Could I just ask? I'm sorry.
One question and then that's it.
Okay. Cody, you mentioned in San Francisco somewhere a seawall with some planting pods or something. I can't remember exactly what you said, but could you please tell me exactly where that is in San Francisco so I could see
Yeah,
it?
it's put on by the San Francisco, the Port of San Francisco. It's the Embarcadero Living Seawall Project.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Great. I don't see any hands raised.
Um,
Is there someone who is not able to raise their hand?
Mostly.
I don't,
Awesome.
don't hear anything. In that case, we're gonna move on unless is there anything else from the council before we move on?
No. No, I'm
Thank
gonna
you
go
so
home to
much,
my
Cody.
cats, if that's okay.
This was wonderful. I
Yeah.
really appreciate you coming.
My pleasure.
An amazing presentation and I would love to link to it on the website and we'll have the video up as soon as PCTV has it.
Yeah, let me know when it is, and then that way we can coordinate that, and we'll be in touch.
Great.
Thank you all so much for having me.
Feel free to take a cookie too.
What was it cook? Oh, yeah, I will.
They got nothing to try.
All right, sweet. Thanks so much. I'll be quieter than leaving. Thank you.
This is great. So we're gonna move on now to the local hazard mitigation plan and Connie is the sponsor of this item. She's gonna introduce the agenda item and a guest.
Yeah, thank you. We have with us, Ryan Reynolds, who is the Assistant Deputy of the San Mateo County Emergency Management Team, right? Brian, can you introduce yourself? Would you mind?
Yeah, no, I'm here. I'm the Assistant Director for San Mateo County Emergency Management. Good evening.
Thanks, Ryan. So I asked Ryan to join. As you guys know, I've been on the, sorry, I'm just trying to find the presentation now. Put up here. I've been part of the steering committee for the local hazard mitigations team. This is a project that's done every 2 years, every 5 years rather, and so it's in its initial stages for this year. We're starting again in 2026. So let me pull up that slide. I'm sorry that Sean's not finding it. Great. Okay, so the deck is in the is attached in our agenda. I'm just gonna go through the.
We're not seeing it on the Zoom.
You can't see it?
Nope. Did you share your screen?
Yeah, I did. Come back.
Oh, maybe to choose one of the other options.
No, I'm trying to have the documents, it's not, I mean.
So
It's not.
you're gonna have to choose your desktops is what you're choosing is the Zoom workspace.
Choose that though. No,
It's gonna be.
it's not showing there, so it's not.
It's like a-
No, guys, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go the.
Did you actually, oh, well, sorry.
I made this, I downloaded it. So we would have it because of the Google file, right? Try it, yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Just bear with us for a moment, Ryan. We're having technical difficulties.
No problem.
Let's try it. Next one we can see what the shit. It's not showing me, is it?
Oh, something's happening. Now we see your desktop, so see if you can maximize this, the presentation.
It's very hard when you're doing the Zoom at the same time, right? That's not. I'm trying to bring it up again. This.
Oh, there you go. It's doing something. Perfect.
I wanted that, Okay, so, you guys can see the local hazard mitigation, plan. Let me see if this will. Here at the bottom, I'm trying to, get it to move forward. Okay. Obviously mitigation, don't need to drain this slide. You guys understand the need for mitigation for sustainable action to reduce the problems and the long-term risks that we have here to potential future disaster and events, to break the cycle of the damage and request repeated damage that we might see in the reconstruction, and then to find some long-term solutions that reduce the impact. So the LHMP is really a county-wide strategic plan that identifies natural hazards and outlines actions to long-term damage, to mitigate the long-term damage to the property infrastructure. So first idea of it is to identify the major risks that exist within the county, to assess the assets and the systems that are most vulnerable, establish mitigation strategies to reduce the risk over time. It does cover the entire county, including all cities, the unincorporated areas for us, special districts, and it's developed collaboratively by 36 local government agencies and partners. It matters because it's maintains the eligibility for future disaster funding through FEMA. So it's really important that we do this every 5 years so that it helps align for us to get some funding through FEMA for mitigation. And it guides the investment in the resilience and preparedness for disaster before they occur. So it happens every 5 years. Last one was 2021. The people who contribute to this, developing this plan, there's two groups. It's the plan participants. They have the legal and operational capability to adopt the plan, implement the plan, and the mitigation strategies to manage it for federal, for FEMA granted funded mitigation projects. They typically include all county governments, the incorporated municipalities, legal organizations, authorized districts, and authority to adopt the resolutions. So I'm trying to get this out of the way here. The stakeholders are the individuals who represent the agencies, the offices, non-governmental organizations with an interest in the activity of hazard mitigation, and community-based members, which would be us. Typically have a specific interest in understanding the expertise in the mitigation. Next slide. So San Mateo County this year for 2026 identified this list of what they consider is the risks that we have: the earthquake, drought, landslide, severe weather, wildfire, tsunami, sea level rise, and dam failure. There's also flood in there. Just to give an idea of the 2025 plan should be organized, 2026 should be organized similarly, but if you look at the 2021 plan, the way it's designed is that they have a volume that has planning area wide elements, which is really very broad across the whole county. It's quite comprehensive, but really large. And then the volume 2 is actually the mitigation projects for each of the partners that participates in this, in that specific to their jurisdiction. And it's a dedicated area in volume 2. In 2021, there were 700 different actions that were identified by these agencies. For the Midcoast, the people who are participating in this are the city of Half Moon Bay, and SAM actually also goes under the Half Moon Bay group. We have Coastside Water District, Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space Trust, Montero Water and Sanitation, Coastside County Water District, San Mateo County Flood, Sea Level, and San Mateo County Harbor District. So those are the groups that are really relevant to us that will be participating in the plan to identify strategies. The timeline for this, it started back in February. They start to draft what they're called annexes, which is really their plans for the remediation efforts they're going to try to target. February through June, they solicit community input. You might have seen the surveys that came out that they asked for survey responses that asked about what we thought were potential risks for the area. They will start to release sometime in May this, I think it's the 15th. This is
The 15th, yes.
15th, is that right, Ryan? Yeah.
Correct, yes.
15th for the first draft will get released, and then there'll be a 30-day period for public comment to look at those. So you want to take a look at those for what the participating agencies are suggesting for work that they would be doing or trying to get to. And then in June, they submit to California Office of Emergency Services. Then July, they do updates for Cal OAS revisions before it gets submitted into FEMA submission. So it's a multi-phase, trying to get through the whole process before the end of the year. Anything I missed in there, Ryan, that you want to highlight?
Nope. I think that sums it up nicely. Yeah, we're making a big push to get it for public comment. And then once that gets in, we'll incorporate all that. And then the hard work to go through Cal OES and FEMA begins.
Yeah.
So I have a clarifying question.
Oh, can I just finish this as well?
Oh, sure.
So-
Are you done?
No, this is the last slide. So the outreach is to raise the public awareness of the update that's coming out, to gather input for perceived hazards or potential mitigation strategies. So it's really important that we start to share our feedback. And there's a couple links in here that we can get to right now that's on the site. They did send the notice out for the survey, and people did respond, so that's great for the county. But there's on the Department of Emergency Services website, there's links for the hazard mitigation assessment form, and then also ideas that we might have for things that we might want them to take a look at. So to do that, things you might consider putting in there are natural hazards you've experienced, anything you think might pose a biggest risk to the community, how concerned you are about them affecting your homes or businesses, mitigation ideas you think might be a top priority for our community here, which we talk about those all the time, and then mitigation ideas that better action, better support for these vulnerable positions. And so we'll keep the links up and we can put them on the site. Anything else, Brian, that you think that we need
No,
to?
I think you nailed it. I would suggest I'll just add briefly, that the LHMP is really it's a done effort done every 5 years, like you mentioned, and it really is about looking at the hazards that could potentially impact our communities, and then trying to come up with actions or things that we can do about it. And it really does then create a pathway or potential for us to go after hazard mitigation grant funds and to do some of these projects. So it's a very important plan.
And Ryan, can also I think what we heard from the steering committee is that public input is really crucial to it as well, right? I mean, that's what I've heard in the steering committee meetings, that it's really important that they get recognition from the government that they have done the community outreach and that there is community response to this stuff, right?
Yeah, so the community outreach is an important standard that we have to meet. It's a box that we have to check, but it's really important to us. This is a plan for the entire community, and so we want to hear from people. What do they feel are the hazards that are the biggest risk to them? What are things that they have experienced, and make sure that those things get incorporated in the plan. Particularly things that have occurred in the last 5 years, and so that we can get that feedback in and get it incorporated, and make sure that we have a plan that's up to date.
Thanks, Ryan.
Okay, are there questions from council members? Claire?
The mention of FEMA caught my attention. Is that the only source that we're looking to for funding, or how realistic is it?
So it's not the only source that we're looking to, but there is the hazard mitigation grant program, which does have significant funding that's available. It's funding that's set aside after every disaster. It's a bit mixed right now, I'll be honest, but we anticipate that it will continue. And this is the benchmark to get access to that. So it's important to do the plan so that we can understand the hazards that are in our community, but ultimately there is this potential to have grant funding. And so we would still want to be eligible for that.
Okay. Dave?
Yeah, just real quick, the last group that was identified, I think it said in the slide 700, I think identified.
For last year.
For
2021.
For the last 5 years.
2021 when they did the.
Out of all of those, how many were addressed? And what's outstanding, and what was the budget allocated? I mean, you may not know all that, but I'm just curious. The budget allocated, and I'm sure the total of all of those 700 projects is gonna equal a lot of money.
Yeah, first I would say it certainly is a lot of money. I don't have specifics on how many, it's up to the individual in jurisdictions to track these projects. And some of them may change. And I think the thing is, there is no set aside pot of money. What this allows us to do is to be eligible for grants, and to go after those projects. Recognizing that there have been some challenges around that the last few years. And so I think it's something that we'll have to continue to work towards.
Thank you.
I would say one of the things that I've learned through being on this group is that some areas are doing, I would say, a better job of getting back, having the organizations get back to the community about the work that they are getting through. Cooper Menlo Park, for example, they keep tabs on that, what's been done and what didn't get done, so that they could go back. I think for us, it would be great to have these organizations when they come in to speak to us. Now they can talk to these mitigation plans that they're asking for and see what their status is on them over the next couple of years, to see whether or not they got funding or not. And just think it's probably helpful for us to try to help keep tabs on that, because as Ryan mentioned, the agencies are the only ones who are really accountable for, you know, statusing it. It's not done across the county or anything, so it'd be important, I think, for us to start doing that.
Do we have a list of specific to the Midcoast of what those projects are?
We will when we will,
this-
when they release this. So Ryan, do you know when the release will be? Because it's supposed to be the 15th. That
Yeah.
they've submitted
Yeah.
already.
So it'll be posted on our website on the 15th of May. I think, you know, there is no, if we place a mitigation action, there is no requirement to do it. I think the other thing that I'll mention is that because of this plan, we have been able to bring in $111 million for these types of projects across the entire county. I can't get into specifics about geographic area, but there have been a significant amount of monies that have come into the county to do work in this area.
I just want to make sure that we get a piece of the pie. on
Yeah, I mean,
Midcoast. And that's why I'm kind of wondering, what are the projects and how do we make
Yeah,
sure
you'll
that we are recognized and not going to larger areas or
So-
cities with more population?
When you look at the 2021 plan, you can go in by group, by area. It'll show, you know, it's great in that second volume because you can just hit in the index in the front. It'll click and you can say, you know, coastside water, boom, or Montero water, and it'll take you right down to their plan and what they're proposing for, you know, projects for grants. So, but then we have to kind of circle back around with them to see, did you get any money? You know, how do we help? Because they're gonna highlight the stuff that they think might, you know, would be most potential opportunity to get the money, I think, so.
Tom,
Actually, Claire asked my question, so thank you.
awesome. Going to the public, Sid Young.
I just wanted to say, as a member, director of Montero Water and Sanitary District, I wasn't really involved in filling out all the forms involved in applying to be approved for the LHMP, the last one. But Montero did have, we did do the work. And I know that Granada started on it and it was so overwhelming, all the paperwork, that Barbara Dice said she gave up and just said, oh, well, it's too much work. And Half Moon Bay did not apply. So when Sam had their, I think it was 2023, they almost overflowed. And Sam was not allowed to get FEMA money because they were a joint powers authority. But thank God Montero had filled out all their forms and applied through the county for the LHMP and was a participant, and we got refunded FEMA money on behalf of Sewer Authority Midcoast side for a couple $100,000, little chunks here and there. We kept giving them checks, and Half Moon Bay and Granada were surprised. I mean, they didn't even realize that that was a possibility. So it made it worthwhile that we had gone to the effort to do that. Now, I do have a question for Ryan. Can the general public submit any kind of information of stuff they would like the county to do on our behalf?
So
Because one of the things I know I'm always concerned about is evacuation planning. Out here on the coast, we do not have an emergency evacuation center, and I know they're planning to do a little bit of vegetation management along Devil's Slide and 92, but you know, who knows when it's going to happen. It's money, but you know, that's a choke point to get out of here. And are there things that that the general public can suggest?
yeah, so there's a feedback form that's tied to this, and that'll be posted on our website on this Friday.
Okay.
And so, you know, I believe the council will post it on their website as well, so you can
Okay,
get
great. That was my question. Thank you.
You said, are there any other people who would like to have a comment or ask a question on Zoom?
So.
We don't see any other hands raised. I did have one clarification, which I forgot, but what I was trying to understand is, it sounds like there's two, according to the process, there's two ways to provide input. Each entity has its plan and will have its separate input, right? Like with a separate opportunity for public input. And then when they're all finished, or when they all come together, then there's another opportunity for public input. That wasn't clear to me.
So.
There's
we-
one period of public comment.
Yeah.
And so all of the annexes, so the first volume that covers the entire county plus all of the individual annexes will be up there. And you can provide feedback on any or all of them. The public comment period, though, will be May 15th to June 15th.
Okay, and for all of them, so you can't comment directly through the entity who's developing the individual specific plans.
In an effort to make it simplified and sort of in best practices that we have that the contractor that's assisting us, we're driving everything through our website and they'll be all broken out. So if you wanted to look at one individual annex, you can look at that, and then the form will collect feedback for all of them.
Okay, that's very clear, thank you.
Yeah, rather than having to go 36 websites or 5 different websites or whatever, getting everything in a single area with everything contained there.
Great.
So maybe we can put that link on our site too, right? So people do. Yeah.
Provide a link. Is there anything else?
Nope, I don't think so.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan, for coming and hanging in there. Really appreciate it.
No
Appreciate all
problem.
the-
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And thank you, Connie.
Sure.
That brings us to item 5D, which is the MCC election requirements and timeline. I put this on the agenda because I thought we should tackle it sooner rather than later. The deadline is July 1st. So the MCC will have open seats at the end of the year. And any candidate who wishes to run for an open seat on the council will need to file their intent, I believe, by July 1st. The elections office notified us that they require that the MCC submit several materials also by July 1st for the upcoming election, and that's required by state law. So those materials are a map showing the jurisdictional boundaries effective for the election. The elective offices to be filled, specifying which offices, if any, are for the balance of an unexpired term and whether the election will be conducted at large or by district. I think that means that we decide which of those we prefer. Claire, do you know?
No, I think you have to do all of it, but it's really easy.
Yeah,
By
but
district or.
to decide whether to do by district or by.
No, we don't, we could decide to do it by district, but usually people don't just decide out of the fear blue sky to do that. That's usually forced on them.
No, I mean, is that an MCC decision? I think that's what we have to notify the elections office of,
If we're
whether
not doing-
whether we're running.
Right now, we're running at large.
Running hard, okay.
But it's a choice, is that what I'm understanding?
It's part of the materials the MCC sends back to the county. To specify how our particular election proceeds.
It's a real pain to drop districts.
So traditionally, we haven't done that.
No.
Okay, so unless somebody thinks that's a good idea,
Just be like by town or something, is that?
it's just at large for all.
No, I know today it is, but I'm saying, are you saying by district would be by each of the areas that?
We'd have to decide, they all have to
One
be
here.
equal in population and relatively homogeneous. Like
like a real
they have to have equal numbers of
Okay,
Hispanics in
okay,
each of
okay.
them.
Got
and
it.
like this.
Like all the news that we're seeing now.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think so, yeah,
Yeah.
we don't want to spend our time.
And we don't have the applicants to,
Well, not.
or
really.
district, if,
Correct.
if we're not gonna get it, it'll just make it difficult to fill seats.
Like what Sid was saying about the MWST.
Yeah.
So, and then the third
Add a
item is a
stenographer.
policy statement determining whether a candidate's statement will be limited to 200 or 400 words. And whether the candidates or the jurisdiction will pay for the candidate's statement.
The candidate will pay for it.
So these are decisions, right? So this is a decision.
This is what we've
we
always
make.
done.
What are you paying for? I'm sorry. What are
So there's two things there. The first decision by the MCC is whether the candidate's statement is limited to 200 or 400 words.
I got that.
The second decision is whether we pay for the candidate statements on the ballot or whether the individual candidates pay.
Candidate statements are optional.
They are optional, but we can choose to pay for the statements.
Oh, Scott said it was free to do it. Didn't you see that?
So what's,
It's free to run, it's not free to make a statement.
it's not free to make
Okay.
statements to be printed in the book.
Okay, got it.
So that's the question, right? If there were 5 candidates running, just a hypothetical. We would decide,
2 to
first of
4.
all, how many words would be part of that statement. And then whether we as a council feel it's important that we pay for their statements or that each individual will pay for their statements.
I'm personally happy to have people talk for as long as they want. If they want 400 words, it's fine with me, but I don't think we should pay for it.
So I think probably that's linked to how much you pay, right? How much
Yes,
you
it is.
Does it say what the cost is between the
It
two?
does not
I
say.
think it's around. Gosh, I want to say $50, I want to say $500, it's somewhere in that.
What?
range.
That's a big range.
Where are you? Can you see it again?
Yeah, I'll see your.
Okay.
So Tony's looking that up. They have provided a resolution template, which I was gonna bring to the next, have prepared for the next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
We would then vote on these things officially and send it into the elections office.
Okay.
Does that seem clear? And are there any, besides the question Tony's looking up, are there any other questions that we need to look into related to this? I think the next logical step is outreach to recruit candidates.
Yeah, I was gonna say
That's
that.
more important.
And we have very little time because it has to happen before July 1st.
Oh, yeah, that's sure.
And we don't know how many openings there will be, but
We know at least one.
yeah. So we could have 5 people running for 1 seat, that's perfectly fine. And if there's 5 seats open, we have those 5 people who all get elected.
Right.
It doesn't really matter.
I think it matters in terms of how people decide if they want to run, you know, what their odds are of success.
So when do we have to know who's staying and who's
That's a
no
good
longer
question.
staying?
We don't. Oh,
Because I almost feel like
You
it would,
do, you do have to know this.
By probably
because
July
we publish
1st.
How many open seats there are, and we have to report how many open seats there will be.
I don't think, let's say, a given council member who we will not name, is planning not to run again. Well, they're not gonna run again. They're up for election, their term is up. If they don't file to run again, then we assume their seat is open.
Yes. Correct.
but that all is simultaneously happening on July 1st.
But this specifically says we need to tell them how many open seats we anticipate will be put on this ballot.
Okay, that makes sense. So if you're, can I just ask a clarifying question? So if your term is up, your 4-year term is up, you have to run again.
You have to run again unless you have used up your term.
Yeah, but. So we have how many, only one person hitting their 4-year term?
There,
No,
So no.
oh, sorry, 12-year?
Scott
No,
will be,
3 consecutive 4-year terms. Right, so you're saying that,
is it 3?
yeah,
Two?
I think I've had 2.5, but they count it as 3. It is 3.
it's 3.
It's 2 terms plus if you have a partial term.
No, I thought it was 3.
Maybe
I think it's 3.
I think
Because
it's three.
with Dan would know.
That's, but
It's
it's,
had a partial term though. One of his terms was partial.
Would you like me to add to this? So,
Sure.
yes, there's a conflict between the county rules and what's on the MCC bylaws. The bylaws say 2 terms, but the county says 3 terms, and that's why I was allowed to run for 3 terms. And if your term is up, you have to run for election.
Yeah.
That's it.
So 2 terms in the MCC bylaws, 3 terms with the county. That's what you just said?
Correct. There's a conflict and the county overrides. So the
Okay.
limit is 3, the limit is 3 4-year terms. Yes. And I had 13 years because there was a switch from elections on an odd year to an even year during my term. That's why I had 13 years.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. So, yeah, so.
so how many people are 4-year then?
Scott will be up to potentially run for reelection. Gus will potentially be up for reelection
Okay.
and myself.
So we have 3, and then Claire, you're
Claire,
at
Is-
the end.
whose term has expired.
So you're 12 years?
Yeah,
Okay.
it may actually be slightly more because was appointed at the very end of a term. Okay, but so that's four.
So, no, just to answer the question, earlier, so that the county website says that it's various is their official thing, but when I look it up with AI, it says it's optional. It's from a few $100s to around 1,000. It depends on if you want translations, how long, like there's other factors that go into it. Yeah, you translate to Spanish, Mandarin, a couple other languages. It just depends on what the candidate chooses.
So
to
we
do.
won't know until we give them our response.
Yeah, and it says on average, all the information I seem to get says from a few hundred to around 1,000 to 1,400.
Okay,
So
Yeah.
Yeah, I say no, but we will vote on that next.
I mean, us
Yeah.
paying for it.
so that was my next question. Do we want to vote on these questions now, or do we want to vote on them at the next meeting?
I say the next meeting when there's.
So at that meeting, we will actually vote on a resolution for the answers to these.
Oh, got it,
Yeah,
yes.
we have to. open
I
it.
think we'll
We
probably.
have to agendize it, don't we?
Unfortunately, vote now.
Yeah.
No, but don't we have to agendize it? Do we have
It
to-
is a
It
data.
is nice that-
Oh, that's true,
Yeah.
but for the voting? For
Yeah,
those
that was the
elements?
whole- That was the whole point of
Okay.
putting it on the agenda.
Okay,
Yeah, I say no to the us paying for the worry.
Okay. Anybody
Can you,
else?
can you open public comment before you vote, please?
We're not voting yet, Dan. Could you
like you said, these.
just hold on?
Well, that's my suggestion. I'm not voting, but that's my suggestion. I saw too.
Okay.
Can I take a straw poll here? Let's just run down the questions. So, I guess the primary question is actually whether we want to pay in the words. So all those who think we should pay for candidate statements, please raise your hand.
So this is an informal voting and you're not letting public comment first.
That's not a formal vote. That's not a formal vote.
I said it's informal vote. You're forming your decisions
Well,
before.
I have to determine whether we should take a vote or not.
Would you like to hear from the audience before you make your decision?
Okay, hold on, folks. The first person with the hand raised was Dan. Please go ahead. Dan? Did we lose him?
Yeah,
No.
okay, yeah, all right, so. Yeah, earlier this year, I called the voting department on Tower Road and I asked them the specifics for the cost. And they told me that they could not give me any specifics for the cost of anything until July, I believe it was. Anyway, so I'm very interested. I want to say that I think that the concept of the MCC paying for voter statement is very interesting. I support it, and I'll tell you why. Number one, it's very historically, it's been very difficult to get community members to consider to volunteer for the MCC and do provide a community service. So it's I think over decades, everybody has said, yes, we want the community to be involved. We want people to step up and be interested. So right now, the last time I checked, I think the candidate statement was like I think if I remember correctly, I could be off. It was like $800, $700, $800. It was just ridiculous. Now, so your average person's that's going to dissuade community members from, if they have to incur that cost and then with no guarantee. Now, I will say, somebody said earlier, oh, candidate statement's optional. Well, if there's a true election, no, candidate statement is not an option. If you do not have a candidate statement and there's a competitive election, you will not win. That's just historic, been proven. So the candidate statement is extremely important only on a competitive election. If there's not enough candidates and there's no election, of course it's not important. but if there is, and so I think that it should be considered. At first, I thought that the county should be, somehow making it easier for the community to participate. Nobody's getting paid. You're volunteering all your time. It should be an easier process to, if you choose to run for election. So this way will be an indirect county payment. I do not believe that they would say no to this. I think, yeah, on the surface, oh, it sounds like, oh, wait a second, why are we giving money, free money? Well, why? Of course. Why? Because we want the community to participate. So that is the reason why I support the concept of council. Whether it's, 50%, 100%, 75%, some level of
Okay,
help,
Dan,
because it's
you're.
ridiculous cost. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I heard it loud and clear. Sid?
I'll be quick. I kind of remember in the back of my foggy brain that it was free for volunteer positions. So you might want to check with the county on that. But I'm pretty sure I'm not running this time, but I thought I heard Scott Boyd announce on Thursday, and you can listen to the Midcoast, MWSD meeting, that it was $200 for the candidate statement coming up. But there is the strategy of not running and then just waiting to be appointed, because a lot of times nobody runs and then they do just get appointed after the fact. So there's always that. And that's all I'm going to say, because I know there's a lot of times they don't get any candidates and then they have to kind of run around and ask people to run. Isn't that how these last two people got seated? I think so. They didn't vote for election. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say.
Can
An
I-
election process would be more democratic.
Sorry. Claire?
Yeah, one time when I ran, I did put in a statement. I really don't think it's necessary. It's a small community. People will find out who you are. And it was $50. I'm pretty sure it was $50. I wrote them a check. Not enough people signed up for the election, so it was an automatic thing and they gave me my check back. I think,
Even though, wow.
yeah, because they didn't ever actually post anything. So, and I think, this is just stuff, who knows really, but I think that the fees are related to the population that you're running among. So ours would be low, I think, or at least it was when I did it. Whereas if you're running countywide, then it might be very expensive.
That's interesting.
How can we find that out?
It sounds like,
It says.
yeah,
I mean, we really don't know the fee of what the cost will be.
yeah. I mean, it sounds like it's within a certain range based on all these factors that have been mentioned, but we won't know until after they look at our information and then they can tell us.
Yeah, I mean, it says right here, and I'm just going off of ChatGPT to be clear, but it says that the county generally does not refund because they take the time to print things out, they mail things out, translate it. So even if you say you automatically win, that you wouldn't get your money back.
Well, they didn't put anything out.
Oh, gotcha, I gotcha, okay, yeah,
It's not printed.
yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so that's helpful, at least we know
Can I-
a little bit.
Can I just add something from my 2 election experiences? I
Dan,
ran
waiting
twice.
for time with comments, this is council, decision time.
Well, it's
Sorry.
important. It's
You've contributed a lot, but we're running out of time. So I appreciate it. So I think at this point, it sounds like we kind of know whether we would like to pay for it or not. And Dan's point earlier about whether it's an indirect cost or a direct cost to the county, I think is interesting because it sounds like it's, it sounds like it's not gonna be free, even though that would be nice because of the volunteer position. But
Good to find out.
I think that's intriguing. I mean, the least we could do is just ask. And
I think we should
thank
ask.
you, Claire.
It wasn't me. I was just checking. It wasn't me.
The least we could do is check to see if it's a possibility that, you know, depending on, I mean, the max would say we had 5 candidates, which seems would be amazing. Whether the county would be willing to allocate that money from our money for 2026 to go towards that. The
Yeah, I think
council members felt that it was a worthwhile thing to encourage people to run.
Or increase what they give us to to cover that piece, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah,
If we get 5,000 and it's 1,000, yeah, just cover it as a cost, but still give us
As an
whatever. Exactly, yeah.
Well, I think that's an important question to answer, so the only problem is we have a strict time limit, so,
Says we can call the elections division, so maybe we can call.
yeah.
To.
Who would like to? I don't have time to ferret out this information, so would somebody like to take it on?
Does it make a difference? If we get number X as opposed to number Y, are we gonna change our mind?
Well, there's 2 council members not, I'm concerned there's 2 council members not here. I'm also concerned that we really need to be voting on the resolution at the next meeting, so this means we would have to have 2 resolutions prepared for 2 alternatives. And make the decisions then, and then choose which resolution fits the alternative that we're choose.
Well, I'll call the elections division and see what I can find out for the
Okay.
pricing.
So these specific, I'll send you the specific questions.
Yeah, and then I'll call to see, because
Then we
if
have
it's
to
nominal,
reach out to the county to see what they're willing to do.
but if it's nominal, I'd have to, you know, I'd say it might be worth it to Dan's point, you know, if it's really nominal or it's free for volunteer.
I mean, from my perspective, I don't want to spend $1,000 on candidate
No.
statements for an election.
So we don't know how many candidates are gonna have.
No, that's right.
It's a, we don't know the dollar amount that we would
But
be paid.
if the county is willing to cover it as an additional.
That's fine
in
with fees
addition
enough.
to what they already allocate to.
That's who we should ask.
Yeah.
We'll get David to ask.
Yeah.
We'll find out what the fees are and ask David.
Oh, we David Cosgrave.
Yeah, we can follow up with them.
You.
No, I was thinking about David Cosgrave.
Okay, so you're gonna follow up on that and I'll send you the specific
Yep,
questions.
That'd be great.
I'll prepare.
If you need help with the rest of it, I think do that. If you guys. Okay, I sent me the template and I will do the rest of it.
Ready?
Okay, so
I'll do
Yeah.
both.
resolution,
I'm fine, what do you?
research.
Yeah. I'll try to find out.
Is there any aspects of this I think I've left out that we still need to cover?
No, just
before the-
community,
pretty good plan.
just community output, I mean, community.
That is the
output.
same thing that we've got to figure out.
So, yeah, community outreach, we can set aside time.
Well,
I'll always tackle that, I don't think we have time now, but. We need to think about specific,
Yeah,
would you like to think about
Yeah, yeah.
the outreach?
outreach, yeah, definitely.
And then maybe prepare some proposal for us.
Sure.
For the next meeting.
Maybe a rate, we can get into
I was
next,
saying like newspapers or something. too.
next door,
Yeah.
yeah, the,
And the
Hillside 411.
To help take
Hillside
on
411.
post office, so that's also an option.
Yeah.
table.
And tabling the farm markets, which are on Saturday mornings in Half Moon Bay.
Well, we just have next month to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'll look out to you.
So we're gonna have a lot of activity
Crystal and-
concentrated into one month.
We're still in for Hillside 411 for the,
Oh, I'm not familiar here. Go said problem.
it's the commerce, member commerce.
Okay.
But for the farmers market.
No, I think you can ask Crystalline also for chamber. She pushes a lot of, like Michelle, she pushes a lot of information out to them.
Okay. Okay, so anything else that you think we should cover on this particular item?
Nope.
I don't think you actually have to send them a map, you just have to describe the boundaries, which is the tunnel, skyline, the ocean, and Half Moon Bay.
It says a map.
I know it says a map, but I don't think they mean it.
Okay, we'll see what happens. Let's see what happens. We can go to the next one.
I want to hire you as my tax person. I don't mean it.
I'll see if I can look, see what we submitted last time.
Yeah.
That brings us to item 5 C,
Retreat.
five E, the MCC retreat report and follow-up. We're already at 9:35.
I know, that's why.
I am behind in getting out to all of you your task list, and I apologize, I just have been way too overloaded. I have sat down to do it, it started, it's just not finished.
Okay.
So what I'd like to propose is, and I was also gonna give you the priorities printed out tonight, but. I'd like to tackle this at the next meeting as well and just get it all set in one go and allocate maybe half an hour. To it.
Okay.
And especially since we don't have Gus or Scott.
The other thing though that would be helpful for it is like, I sent Antonio a link for like the outreach stuff, but he's not getting the.
That's one thing I was
You
gonna
get the
ask
email.
us to do is
I said, I don't have his contact to help to get him started on the.
Oh, he was getting the council email.
Well, I'm not, definitely didn't get an email from you. I checked and I'm not really sure what the issue is, cause.
I sent them the
It's
link
just
for the
not-
meeting in July where we did the outreach stuff to show him, but
What
And-
email
and then-
did you send it to?
I sent it to the only one I could find on the website, which is the one we have on the website published for him.
You know what? Here it is right here. It's
Oh.
in my spam. Yeah. Sorry about that.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I
I'm
only
getting
know
a lot of-
one, I
yeah,
only know
no,
one
we-
email.
It was, yeah. No, that's my bad.
Okay, cool.
Is that the right, do I need to change the email on the website? Is that the right one?
No, if you got it.
No, I
That's
got
the
it,
only email
yeah.
I know.
I think it's just, I'm just, for some reason, I'm just getting inundated with stuff. I just sent it to my spam, so I just double checked and.
Okay, good. So we will take that up at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Run with it. Oh, boy, that brings us
We
to
can-
council activity.
I was just gonna say, they can get started on stuff, so that's why I sent it to him, right?
Right.
We don't have to wait for your write-up, we kind of know what we need to do, so.
I'll be sending them right up to you this week.
Okay.
Just.
When I send it to David, I'll get him started on some of the risk stuff like this, David.
So that brings us to council activity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was gonna start with Tony, or do you find you ready? Do you have any council activities to report?
I do not know.
Okay, Connie?
I attended the coastal emergency action plan meeting, got quick updates there. And I invited, those people from those organizations to come and speak to us about what they're doing. And so the medical resource board is interested, so I'm gonna meet with them this week. Tomorrow, I think, or the next day to see, so they'll come, they would like to come and present to the community, because I think they're gonna start looking for volunteers.
And is there a timing constraint for?
No, I don't think it is. I haven't talked to them about what they want to present yet, so I'll talk with them this week and then I can put something together. But they're trying to build up the core, I think, is what they're essentially, but,
Okay,
and then, they have I don't have the date now, pardon me, the Great American, not Great American, the Great Shakeout that they do to, for emergency response. I'll send that date. I'm sorry, I didn't have it ready from them.
Are they gonna have a emergency fair at Half Moon Bay again this year?
I don't know about an emergency fair. They're having a senior fair. We're having
Yeah.
a senior fair that we know about also from the healthcare group we met. You
Right,
You
I
want to share
think-
that? You share the healthcare group.
But I've already shared it privately.
Well, there's the senior fair is coming up in May.
okay, so.
I don't think we need to have a presence there, do you?
No, I'm just sharing it with the community that for the healthcare and the age friendly, that there's a, and Supervisor Mule will be there and there's a lot of presentation for the community there, right? For the senior health fair.
It's senior resource fair,
Senior resource fair, yeah, that
free
is
housing and
May,
stuff.
yeah, on May 29th. Yeah, so that's it for me. It's friendly in the coastal emergency.
Okay, David, do you have any council activity report?
No, I don't.
Claire?
I think I probably said everything I had to say today,
Okay.
but I was thinking about this, they traditionally do have a emergency fair in Half Moon Bay sometime in like the early summer, and we have had booths at that before.
Who sponsored it?
I don't know. We've actually had some kind of presence at the Gay Pride Parade too. I mean, if we're looking for places to show up,
Outreach, yeah.
Okay, you wanna think more about that and think of it in terms of our outreach for the next meeting?
I don't know if I'm on the outreach group. I don't think I am.
Well, Tommy is
Yeah.
gonna propose some outreach, so. talk
We
with
can
him.
add you to that group if you'd like, because I know you kind of pushed off some roles last time.
I don't remember what I signed up for. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
You're gonna know very shortly.
You're still doing planning. I think you're gonna mentor Tony on planning.
So you're gonna let Tony know what those opportunities are and he'll.
Also, you
Like
your research thing, maybe.
Let's think
Oh,
about
thank
it.
you.
Because I don't know if, I don't know.
Okay, I have one thing to report, and that is that the planning commission met this morning. The, I'm just gonna read this, I'm tired. The draft changes to the design review standards was headed to the board of supervisors, but in a quick turnaround, the planning department sent it back to the planning commission, and they heard it today, and it was with some changes that were made that was not circulated further. The changes that were made were to add more language around bird safe glass. And that was championed by Green Foothills and a lot of the bird organizations in the area. So that language made it into the design review standards and it was considered this morning. The lighting standard, which the MCC had recommended, that section was also changed again. And what I understand is that the county changed the lighting requirement to still to keep it at 3,000 Kelvin correlated color temperature, which is just the threshold of dark sky compliance, unfortunately, and it will not apply to, it will only apply to new construction. It will not apply retroactively to current buildings.
Point of information, that's incorrect. I was at the meeting. It's 2200K.
It's
But,
2200, then it's 2200K applies to new construction, not to existing residential.
Right. Every 2200K for everything. What is the exception is the existing single family houses and only new construction. So 2200K, so that's how I understood it. That's how
No,
it's written. That's how it's written.
that's not how it's written. It only applies to new construction. It does not apply to existing residential homes.
Correct. That's
I
the
read it.
residential. That's the residential section. But
That's-
everything else, 2200K, institutional, multifamily homes, commercial, yes, 2200K.
You're saying the same thing, aren't you?
I'm not sure because I thought that also remains the same. It doesn't change for existing or commercial or residential.
Well, we could look at that later, but that's my understanding.
Okay, thank you for adding that. I did not get to see the meeting video yet and I didn't get to go to the meeting because it was at 9 o'clock. But I'm glad it's on board.
You
So.
can email the text. I'll email the text to you.
Okay, so the version that the planning commission approved this morning will now go to the board of supervisors, and it's not clear to me which meeting it will go to, but we'll keep an eye and let everybody know when the meeting comes up. You know, depending on how you look at it, it's not a bad outcome. It's not the outcome we hoped for. But I think there's still room for us to look at a lighting ordinance and try to get that effort going again. And this, in the interim, will at least help somewhat with the lighting concerns on the coast side. And that said, I encourage community members to give public comment at the Board of Supervisors meeting. on this to let the supervisors know, you know, whether, you know, what you support in the lighting standards. So that's really all I have to report. That brings us to future agendas. I heard a few that Connie mentioned during council activities. Are there other future agenda items that you would like to suggest?
You know, just the ones I have for, once we'll look at that, group, I'd love to.
So, Medical Resource Corps and Great Shakeout.
Yeah, I'll get the date for the Great Shakeout, and the Senior Resource Fair is May 29th, so maybe we can, well, that's a future agenda, sorry, so. Future agenda. I'll get the Great Shakeout dates for us.
I
Okay.
thought that was in October.
No, it's coming up, I forget what they said the date is, let's have to look at the calendar again.
Okay,
The
so
other-
I'm gonna put it on the future agendas list and then you'll tell me proposed dates.
Yeah, I'll give you that, and I just remembered also there was they're starting a telecommunication group too, the people from Pescadero. They got you know, Pescadero was effective in being able to get a small amount of money to build this grid. We've heard about it from, you know, Congressman Liccardo's office and Ray's office, right? And so they're trying to pull together like a consortium about telecommunications efficacy, I think, and stuff. So I'll talk with them too. They're reaching out to get, you know, CBOs and people involved in that.
So
So
are you suggesting that somebody from that visit come talk to us?
maybe,
What's
yeah,
this?
yeah. I'll find out what exactly they have that they maybe, the first meeting's coming up, but I'll see what that is. It's like a
Okay,
communications group, so I'll follow up on those things.
Tony, did you have any agenda items?
No, just gonna, waiting to look over that list again, of the things we need to do, so.
Okay. David?
Same, once I get the list out, I have one to report out.
Okay, Fred?
Nothing except it says here that the Great Shakeout is in October 16th.
Is it that late?
That's what it says.
What's the Great Shakeout?
It's a work earthquake drill.
Oh, okay,
Maybe I'll look through the fall. Okay. I am looking to figure out agenda items for the next meeting, so it sounds like we will have time for our retreat follow-up and our elections follow-up, and then possibly one other speaker item.
We have another thing that we just haven't even talked about. It was really big for a little while, and that is our consultants and all that stuff. What are we doing?
We talked about that at the last.
Oh, I guess when I wasn't here. Okay,
Correct.
I should read the minutes.
David did the minutes.
I know they did the minutes.
It's 8 minutes.
Yeah.
So Claire, can you vote it on me?
I trusted him.
Oh.
I want to encourage people to read the materials.
I read it. I will say I read the minutes.
So did we drop it or what?
No, we didn't. I
Okay,
don't
good.
rehash it.
All right, don't rehash this. It's still alive. That's all I know.
It's still alive and, I'm ready to have it updated for next meeting. It's not a bad idea. In fact, we will probably have a report from Charles by then, so. Okay, I think that's it. I was looking at several times Department of Public Works has come up and I wonder if do we all agree that we want them to come to a council meeting and just give us an update on what they're doing?
Yeah.
Post, that'd be great.
Yes.
Okay, would anybody like to sponsor that item?
I can reach out to them.
Okay,
Ask
that'd be
them if they
great.
can, yeah.
If you could sponsor that and, maybe give them, I mean, that's possible for the next meeting as the speaker item, depending on how willing they are to come, and if not, maybe the dates in June for the 2 June meeting.
Okay.
That's all I've got. And we're 5 minutes away. Thank you all. Shall we adjourn?
Yep.
Yes.